I'm just joining on teams. But yeah, it also would have been a good idea to have asked, let's say, me and Zute, what you think should happen after yesterday, because we've done quite a lot of tournaments and some of everybody to the PUBG Mobile Europe Community Tournament. We are here. This is week number 3, the final week for these teams, these communities, to make a big difference. See who's going to come out on top. My name is Imperium, and I'm not alone. Of course, you see him to my side. Don't know which side, but he is to my side all this time. The one, the only, the Zute, not a Zute, the Zute. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Thanks for that wonderful introduction, Imperium. So yeah, we're getting into week number 3. I can't believe 2 weeks have already passed, and these teams have been absolutely slugging it out with one another, Imperium.
For sure. To address one thing, of course, that, so to speak, the elephant in the room before we get into the overall standings. Yesterday's games, as I just pointed out, due to the MS differences and basically the unplayable conditions for the teams and the players, it was decided that yesterday's games would be cancelled. We did get through game 1. That's been scrapped. The results do not count within the overall standings, and it will be played this Saturday. So we technically have an extra day added. It's going to be played on Saturday. So even though we're in week 3, we do have the extra day to play. 6 days in total remaining for all of these teams. So outside of that, let's move it into the overall standings and take a little bit of a look on how these teams are at least need to shape up, or otherwise they're going to ship out today.
Yeah, well, as far as being shipped out, I don't think France is shipping out anywhere soon. Like, France still holding such a dominant lead, and it's not like they just had a couple of really big days and then some days they'll fall off. It's like day by day. Every time, the French community is playing, it's consistent high points. So I don't think that gap is going to close anytime soon, whereas the teams trying to catch up, Germany, Italy, and Romania, we see them have some big days, and then we see them have some off days. Like, we've seen all 3 regions from the 2nd to 4th place, area, a little bit inconsistent. So I don't think France is going to lose that number 1 spot anytime soon.
Yeah, I would definitely I'm behind you on that one. Anything can happen. There's still plenty of games to go, of course. As it's a new week, we do have a new formation of groups that are playing. Groups A, B, C, and D are up on today's table of 4 games. That means we have no Team Glor representing Slovakia, Czech Republic, no Eastern Stars representing Romania, no Team Bravis representing Spain, and no Uncanny representing Portugal. That does leave it open for Germany, France, and Italy, who are currently the top 3, to have both teams representing their communities. So it's kind of like 100% opportunity in today's 4 games.
Definitely. And for today's 4 games, we do have, of course, the regular map order. We do got Erangel coming up first. Right now, actually, on top on your screen, we're heading into the first match of Erangel, a very good plane path diagonal from south to north, cutting down the center. Question is, we do have Game Lord playing, or not Game Lord, we do have Mega Power playing today, along with, I do believe, Real Tiger 9. But Mega Power, they're going to elect to go to Nova. They can stretch to Nova from this plane path. If the plane path was, further west, we might see that hot drop again. Chinky, but coming up next, I know it's a little bit too early to say, but we do have Miramar coming up next, and we do see Mega Power and Real Tiger 9 pretty much fight it out every single time. So that's going to be something I'm looking forward to for today.
Yeah, nothing wrong with planting a few seeds. Lemniscate are going to have a little bit of an easier job in today's Erangel games, at least, because in previous days they've kind of battled with Team Bravis on that split drop just outside of farm. They can rest quite nicely at the fact that not only does the plane path complement their drop spot, but again, no Team Bravis in this lobby means it's a lot freer of an area for them to loot up and get their bones about them. For Romanian men, though, Sarah seemed to be fighting for a little bit of a vehicle with one of the players of another team. That is Ed of Red Moon, trying to run him over. Hasn't been found. At what point, though, does he just kind of leave him be and start looting up himself?
When you see a teammate come in with a vehicle and when they might happen to have a weapon, that's when you decide to leave. So Red Moon A nice little dodge and weave right there. Ed managing to keep himself alive for the first 2 minutes of the game at least.
Yeah,
That's always good. And yeah, the runovers are a lot harder than it looks, right? Like in the
I know,
beginning,
right?
it seems like it's really easy to run people over with vehicles, but players have really developed, let's just say, their movement skills over the time. And when players start, jiggling back and forth, trying to fake out, your car, trying to run them over, it's way harder than it looks.
It is. It is. I fully agree. I remember, she's back in 2019, early 2020. It was a lot easier to see, a player getting run over when they were kind of fighting for that vehicle in some
Mhm.
way, shape, or form. But yeah, indeed, teams have gotten a lot better, or players have gotten a lot better in terms of predicting where the vehicle's going to be, using a bit of rock as cover. But we see phase one up on our screens. Can't argue with it. It's very centralized. Have a little bit of Military Island, a little bit of North River, but a vast area of that mainland is there to be taken over.
We had the exact same zone pretty much yesterday on the first game of Erangel, if I'm not
Ooh,
mistaken.
okay.
And we were talking about it the other day, how like this type of zone, a first circle rotation is very, there's a question mark up in the air, right? Because if the
Okay.
circle shifts a little bit to the east or the west or south or north, it dynamically changes the potential outcomes of the rest of the game. So we were saying how
Fair.
teams might want to, take their time to rotate here, even on this first circle, and just wait to see where that second circle goes. But when teams get to play the same exact circle, like back to back days pretty much, you might see them, make some adjustments from whatever they learned from the day number one, or not day number one, excuse me, from yesterday's game coming into today's game.
Yeah, that's true. The one thing that I'm looking to see different is decided big. Because compared to yesterday, and compared to other days, I suppose, but especially yesterday, when you're highlighting the similarity in the circles, there's no
Mhm.
team blur. Technically, that means they shouldn't be slowed down on their rotation in the first couple of circles, going into the mainland, kind of in between Rozhok, Yasnaya, and putting themselves in a strong position.
Mhm. I'm gonna keep my eyes out for big once again today. Yesterday they did have a really good opportunity to, make it into the top five at least for the game. And
Yeah.
when their early game's always good. You mentioned Glor because they got into an early fight with them. Not and just not because of Glor's fault, okay? It's because Big wanted to take that fight. They went out of their way to chase them down into
Yes.
the blue zone, which I'm perfectly okay with. The first two circles, I think the first two circles, you can do that on Erangel. You don't have to prioritize a position in the first two circles. But coming into circle three, circle four, that's when I wanted to see Big take advantage of a really good hardship that they had their way, and then it did not happen. And Big, it's
Mm,
interesting because usually teams start off with getting down their rotation first and being more of a rotational heavy team. And once they get
fair.
comfortable with that, then they start developing their team fighting skills. Big is a different type of breed of team from, the 2 weeks that we have watched them. They're a team that first specialized in learning how to fight, and they're damn good at it. They are damn good at it. I think they win like, up close to like 90% of their first initial 4v4 engagements. But they're a team that seems to be lacking on the rotational strategy side. It's usually
Yeah.
the other way around. It's usually teams always rotate, rotate, and then when they get into fight, they collapse because they're not used to it. So nothing against Big. I think it's just the meta change, right? We've seen over the course of the years, it's the aggressive teams that do well at the PMGC level. So maybe, Big is a team that kind of, picked that up and is first developing their fights, their aggressiveness, and they have yet to fully develop, more of their rotational calibers.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair enough. Can't disagree with that. The stats to an extent speak for itself. I know this stat includes both German community teams, LMV being the second. But when you look at the amount of placement points the German community has, 253 currently. The two teams either side of them in first and third, 329. 321. That's a near 70-point difference, right? That speaks for itself in placing points alone, never mind eliminations. Although eliminations aren't that much different. Greek army rotating on towards the mainland, coastal line area. I think this is a good spot for them to put themselves in. It could be like a little bit too deep, too early in terms of the coastline, but there is a lot of kind of disengagement, a lot of exit potential. One thing you always said to me from this area, it's just about how they spread out and how proactive they are.
Yeah, the first circle is more about exit potential and the ability to gain info, right? You see Greek
Yeah.
army here with both long sight lines to the rest of the map. And even if they're nowhere close to the center of the zone and the next circle shifts, out of line of sight, they could see where they could drive to get to the next position to further scout in. And this area, of course, is a very, safe area. It's got a little bit of a pocket. The exit strategy is there. There's no position that's close by that's really heavily, favored by teams that could lock them in. So Greek army doing a nice little, pit stop rotation as far as, where they're positioned. And with the next circle coming back up, you see they're ready. They're next to their vehicles. They're waiting for the shift.
Lemniscate, they haven't really moved from this initial looting position in around the farm area. They've kind of touched a bit more towards the west. However, with how phase 1 was, you could argue they didn't need to move. I just wonder how much loot they have completely as a team as we move into phase number 2, the 100. Coming in outside of Lipovka in around the mansion area, and it has popped up. It's not too bad. It's away from the north of the river with a little bit of melee in play.
Yeah, this zone super familiar for all of these teams. The main big areas, of course, is that giant sprawling hill in the middle of the map, and then of course you got the shelter area right there, and you factor in the toll booth a little bit northwest of Milta, and that's majority of the center of the circle. So with that in mind, these teams can start prioritizing and playing off those 3 locations that I mentioned. Of course, if it does have a really hard shift to a certain direction, those three land areas that I mentioned might not come into play, and that's when teams have to do a quick adjustment. But more than likely, it's going to end in one of those 3 positions, and teams can start setting up for their potential play options with those 3 positions in mind.
It's not much, but I really like the simple rotation reaction on this phase 2 shift from the 100. They rotated through the lumberyard hill, and I think kind of going a little bit deeper down the hill, but not obviously too deep, but just controlling the lumberyard hill. Obviously, they don't exactly know that it's free, but we see on our perspective that it is. I just love the quickness of how they were to react to that circle, and I think they've executed a really good rotation.
Definitely. And Chasmot Gaming on your screen with a very nice split, controlling the shelter area, of course, and Pocus anchoring down, the northern side of shelter, which is another huge, jumping point for future rotations and info gathering. He does have to make sure he keeps his vehicle in a way where, it's positioned in a way where if he does get crashed, it's positioned away from the side that he will most likely get crashed by for a quick exit back to his teammates. Game Lord right here coming in from the north side, running into the big team. Now, Big has always taken a team fight with pretty much the first team they've seen. But this stage in the game, it's a little bit later than usual, and Big might not decide to take a fight with this team. But if they do, it's Game Lord too. It's a very strong team. They usually, end up fighting the weaker teams, but it does seem like they are going to take this fight. They've identified where the position of the first player is, and they're going to do a push right onto it.
Yeah, seems like they recognize that Spicy is in that little bit of a dip on his own, and that crash might be coming through. Spicy does grab his vehicle and gets the hell out of bat. Lovely reaction from Game Lord, but now Big, they're committed to this fight. Jumping on board, me, the IGL, goes forward. Nay being thrown out by one of the Game Lord crew. Lovely 2-2 split from Big. I really appreciate how they're playing around this. Beast and Mizara are working together. They are the 2 firecracker players. They open the door. They say, "Heidi ho, we are here, Game Lord. We're here to take over." But it's a counter knock coming on the other side. Mizaro down to his knees. Beast on a sliver of health on the underside. Swaving, turning the switch on through. Goes for the drop shot and executes a knock onto Naravello. This is working out in the favor of Big. I appreciate how quick they were to try and execute this engagement, but they need to finish it off. Rob's the last player standing, not quite the Spicy still on board, but that's gonna be another kill in the favor of Big. Zite, you gotta be impressed with that, man.
Yeah, I mean, that's classic Big right there. I will have to say though, I mean, they did win the team fight. As ever a critical person as I am when it comes to, competitiveness,
Hit me.
Game Lord kind of threw that. So
Fair.
Spicy, Game Lord Spicy, he was playing an off angle position for the support, which I don't blame him because typically you would expect, Big to not full commit. You'd
Yeah.
expect one player of Big to also hold an off angle to be prepared for that flank. So I think that's why Spicy took so long to try and flank around. But at some point, when you're playing that off angle support, you have to take it upon yourself to realize, okay, I'm not able to get anything done enough right now. My team is losing the fight. I will take the risk to try and flank around, maybe get shot at a little bit, but there's a potential opportunity for me to flank around
Yeah.
and come on the backside of Big. And Big, I think Big's, it wasn't a mistake here because they weren't punished for it, but they committed 4 players all onto one side of the hill. If Spicy had just driven back around behind them and just took a position behind the multiple hay bales, multiple, dips, hills behind Big would have been really pressured to force their fight over onto the other side. And there's a good chance they could have lost that. But either way, it's like both teams, play the engagement the way they did. And it was a good fight. It was a very decent hold and a good aggression from both sides of the teams.
Real Tiger 9, as you move on, phase 3 popped up. It's on that big sprawling roadside that holds onto a massive part of the hill inside this circle. Mango has to be extremely careful, very little cover around them. They put pressure on the 4 Romanian men, enough to send them away. That kind of suppressive manipulation move by Real Tiger 9, I gotta say, it's absolutely great. Now, 4 Romanian men, I don't disagree with them disengaging. The thing is, do they know where they want to go? It seems like they do. Redux is going to be first to go there, hangs onto the sniper tower, but Real Tiger 9, they want to respond to that. They're pushing 1 player forward, but he's on his own for the time being. Malik gets a knock on the Louis. It's actually a 3rd team in the mix. I don't know exactly where that is, but either way, Real Tiger, you gotta focus on 1 fight at a time. Ayu gets a knock with the nade, but it's gonna be returned. We switch on over. No, we don't. We stick on towards this fight. And Redux Bot did such a good job of getting the shots off.
Well, we're back over to Big. They just finished off a team fight. They're down to the last player's Swave, and I think it's a 1v3 situation. Big coming off hot with the fight with Game Lord, running straight into Chosmok now. I don't think it's going to work out this time around for the Big team. We didn't see what happened in the initial engagement, but beautiful grenade by Shadowwind. And that is Big taken out with, I believe, only 4 eliminations. Coming back onto the fight with 4 Romanian men and Real Tiger 9. Seems like 4 Romanian men have taken the advantage here. They have knocked and confirmed. Or no, they haven't confirmed the player yet of Real Tiger 9. So Real Tiger 9 will keep 3 alive. They did get third-partied, but next circle shift comes out. There's so much fighting going on, and the circle is going to end around the Western Hill side, or not the Western Hill side, but a little bit more west of the previous circle.
Big missed an opportunity to get a very strong result to help the German community in the overall standings. Feels bad, man, indeed. It's still 4 points, but it should have, could have, would have. Otherwise being so much more. Expect wants to join in on this fight here in the northeastern edge of the circle, should I say. As I said, the sprawling roadside that overlooks the hills down south. Shots being sprayed from a distance by Salazar just to send Real Tiger 9 back. However, that will give information over the 4 Romanian men that there's a team behind them.
I want to see Rex play a little bit more aggressive, like peek a little bit harder to see what you can do. But given their position, they have a nice setup where they could space teams away, and they shouldn't feel under too much pressure for a team to third party them. So they could take the opportunity, see what you could do. Maybe if you open up with 2 openings onto the 4 Romanian men, pick up a few of those kill points. But it looks like they are playing a bit more passive, and they're just wanting to hold down this location, whether seeing if they could do anything with it.
I think that there are two things that you said that really stood out to me. One was finding that opening knock, right? I think that was
Mhm.
always going to be an imperative part of them pushing a bit more aggressively, but also during the kind of position where realistically anybody could enter from behind without them massively noticing. So they really, in my eyes, I think it was better that they stayed back a little bit to cover them from behind. You saw
Mhm.
Salazar turning around and seeing one of the Chazimak players, for example, right? So I think being aware of that was massively important for Rexspec. Moving over to the western side, the edge of the circle outside the farm. 7-up! One of the players getting a knock onto Versace. That's Torch. Weird symbols, but
Oh,
not weird plays. He gets dropped at a hat, though, by Shet. Good return fire. I love the fact that they were not phased by that knock onto Versace. They want to push forward. They want to protect their land. Information will be given over to Freezy as Stone plays towards on the sidelines, gets the pre-fire shots onto Forever, has to switch over weapon. That's going to be executed nicely. Freeze is on his own.
beautiful shots right here by 7-up. You saw that player when he got knocked up on that second floor. He started facing towards the direction of Freezy, and you could bet your butt he started pinging that enemy's location. It's saying 3 under me, 1 more here, 1 more here. And as soon as Sohn got that knock, you saw him instantly be prepared to shoot at Freezy because that position was already given away by the previous play or by his previous teammate that was knocked upstairs. So really good to see players staying proactive even after getting knocked. Back onto the Mega Power side, taking a fight with V100. V100 will come out on top there. And I feel like we just went from 0 to 100 going into circle shift number 3. And we're actually going into circle shift number 5.
Yeah,
But from the start of circle shift
exactly.
3, it's been non-stop fighting.
Because I was looking at the first 2 circles and thinking, it's been fairly quiet so far. I think it was when Game Lord were setting themselves up around the Alamo position. I thought, okay, this is a fairly clean start, quiet start to the game. And like you said, went from 0 to 100 as the last player of Lemnis Skate went from 0 to 6 foot under. Real Tiger 9, Nazgod, nothing he can do in that moment. La Familia push up. Italy are here to take over, just like back in the 1994 World Cup, although they did go down to Ireland in that moment. Man, the good times. The good times as an Irish national. The rest of Real Tiger 9, 2 players left, Mango and Malik. They're going to have to step up. Maybe wait. Let's see if information can be given over.
I like what La Familia is doing here. They're wrapping around a little bit to explore more options, but they need to just eliminate the team in front of them. They already, hurt the team of Real Tiger 9, and if they don't deal with them, Real Tiger 9 will just be a nuisance pretty much. But it looks like they're just gonna avoid fighting Real Tiger 9 and circumvent them, which I don't agree with coming into the late game. You should always make an attempt and make an effort to wipe out a team around your edge. And when I say make an attempt, make an effort, I mean don't do a full committal. Approach it in a way where you just get one player knocked at worst, trying to clean that team up, and then you could set up your reset, set up your defense, and that's worst case scenario. And best case scenario, you get the opening and you clear out the team, but they are going to just go up to the north and ignore the team of Real Tiger 9, it seems like, on the mini map. Coming down to the western side, a little bit further down, Real Tiger 9 actually might just end up getting taken care of by a different team of 7-up.
I see where you're coming from, but I actually agree with the fact that they didn't really look for that fight, because I'm looking in the fact that they might not have known where all of the players of Real Tiger 9 were, therefore they could have wasted time being called out. And I think focusing on what they knew is in front of them is a little bit more important for the side of La Familia. And indeed, they're taking over. Plus, this is low ground. It's a great area to hold on to in this part of the circle. It'll have to remain to be seen if it's going to be inside the next phase. Chazmak, they're down to 2 players. Rexspec, they're just a little bit up further above them on towards the roadside. The low ground on the south edge of the circle as well, and the underside of the hill is pretty important. 18 left, 22 players. Lovely shot from Wasted. It's not connecting every single bullet, but again, it's all about that suppressing fire.
Yeah, the suppressing fire is really important in the late game. It keeps the other enemy team's head down, and as long as their heads are kept down for more than them shooting back, that's a lot of pressure and spacing that allows for you to adjust to other potential factors that happen throughout the match. Now, the next circle has shifted up And that grenade just smashing into the face of Zans. Zans will get confirmed. Circle has shifted up north to the high ground on the exact hill that I mentioned. So going into circle number 2, I called out 3 potential ending locations. And from that point on, I am hoping most of these teams already had plans for options A, B, and C. And we see it right here. It's going to be option A. It's going to end on top of that hillside.
Glad to know that you're fully aware of your ABCs, Zute. You passed your basic English in school. Love to see it. 7 up. 1 player left alive. So, and does have the 100 in front of them. But the 100 focus a little bit more heavily on carving their own entry point into the circle. It's going to be easier said than done. I thought it was Rexpec. My apologies. It's 4 Romanian men who hold on to that core position that's now inside the circle on top of the roadside. The sniper tower is doing wonders for 4 Romanian men as Greek army still holding things down strong. Looking forward to last of YMCA 100. Reznov looking for Goldie. Shots in the distance. Gonna make some noise. Take some risks at this time in the game as he sprawls up the hill. Yet to get into the edge of the circle as Sohn goes down. That's the end of 7 up.
Shazbot Gaming just down to Shadowin, hiding in between the wheels of the buggy. Luckily for him, he does have that circle, so he doesn't need to make much noise, and he can just stay here prone. He's got 2 4-man teams to his northeast, northwest, and south. He is absolutely surrounded by... He is actually surrounded by 12 players right now, so as long as he stays quiet, they can take care of all the other teams for him.
He has to encompass his actual name. He needs to be a shadow. The realms of possibilities to pull out a massive result. Greek army doing a great job. Only 2 eliminations, but one of the teams with a full squad up around them, hanging on to the eastern side. They have the low ground that they're going to be able to use to their advantage should they get rid of the last LMV player, Goldie. Of course, it's going to require the next circle shifting to hold on to that low ground. It could shift up north to have the roadside and towards the hill in which La Familia holds on to. 5 teams left, 13 players. It's a matter of time. We're hitting the 24.5-minute mark. Lovely shots by Stybone onto one of the members of 4 Romanian men.
That's 1 player taken down that they might have to eventually push towards if the circle shifts that way, and that is a huge setup for them, no matter where the circle goes now. Greek army, this team, if they play it correctly, they can end up winning this match. The next circle comes out. That one kind of ambiguous. It just goes straight in the middle of all the teams. So that kind of forces all 4 or 5 teams left to just kind of inch a little bit closer to one another, which might cause a lot of unpredicted chaos.
This is one of these games where I'm genuinely thinking, I don't know who's going to win. Nobody really has the controlling position. Technically, it looks like 4 Romanian men, but they've been whittled down. They've suffered another knock. La Familia, they have one of their players knocked. All the while, Shadowwen is indeed continuing to be a shadow. Greek army, push on forward. You called them out as potentially going to be able to come out on top. There is that little bit of a low ground which you're going to be able to utilize, and that's where Stybone plays it forward, gets out of the vehicle and nails Dewey with the spray. Absolutely perfect.
Hello, Greek army? A Greek army player pulled that off? A team that's been struggling? Like, okay,
my God.
I mention it all the time. They've been struggling. Every time I see them do well, oh no. They're starting to lose that momentum. They're starting to get picked apart. But wow, what a shot from Greek army. We're down to only 2 players now from the Greek army side. They're going to be forced to play a lot more passive. 2 players getting knocked and thirsted in a blink of an eye. This is that chaos I'm talking about. When all 4 teams have to press closer together, you never know what can happen. Shadowin still alive.
Yep.
Chilling right there. Yep. And La Familia only has 3.
Is Shadowwen French or Italian? I'm a little bit confused. But as of right now, he's a camouflage in the grass. A snake in the grass, you could say. Hoping that he doesn't get spotted. Clay moves around. The last player of LMV is still alive. I speak too soon. He's being eliminated by Redox Spot. 4 Romanian men continue to be able to keep 3 players alive as Shadowwen drinks another drink to try and keep the cloak of invisibility on him as we still have 4 teams up. You said Greek army, they've lost a lot of their advantage point being whittled down to 2 players. That opens the door for 4 Romanian men as they get a knock in the clay. You get another elimination, double digits. So far as Wasted is going to be found out. Shadowend stepped up. Evil Boy is going to get the trade. However, that does leave La Familia down to 0. Bye-bye now. And that leaves Greek Army and 4 Romanian men, the last 2 teams up.
A 3v2 situation. 4 Romanian men are going to press this as a circle did go towards the Greek army side. Both players hiding behind a single tree. They really need to get a knock now, or else the util from 4 Romanian men will ultimately finish them out. You see, they're trying. One of the players knows this. He's trying to space out, but it's a little bit too late. The 4 Romanian men have their eyes dead set on this tree. They know this is where the objective is, and that grenade might come in huge. It does not. It's not looking good for the Greek army side. They're trying to do as much as they can, and just one grenade is all it's going to take. But the shots ring out first. 4 Romanian men get the opening. 1v3 situation for Malice. Doobie pushing on up with the other angle being pushed as well by his teammate, and 4 Romanian men with an absolutely massive push for the Romanian side.
You gotta think if Greek Army could have won that if they hadn't have lost 2 players. I think it was Stybone that had kind of that off angle. He probably would have been a big part of that end game, what technically might have been a 3v3, for example. But great play by 4 Romanian men. They repositioned earlier on when they got engaged by, I forget exactly, I think it was Real Tiger 9. They got suppressed. That reposition was perfect for them. That sniper tower was fantastic. They didn't commit to it all at once super early, but just the way those circles shifted, man, they held on to it and they controlled it in the end for the chicken dinner.
Yeah, so when Real Tiger 9 was gatekeeping them out, we saw the team of 4 Romanian men. They just circled in front of them.
Yeah.
Now, you can argue like how do they know they could do that? You know, why do they think they could just cut across right in front of them? Because we don't usually see that. But I think with Real Tiger 9, they had like up to 3 players peeking that hillside to try and gatekeep them. And if you are very familiar with the terrain and the map, you can assume if there's 3 players peeking us, that means they're doing at most a 3-1 split. And that one player that split, he could be at the tower, but if we just 4-man and circle around to the tower, we can take it. And so it just worked out for them that way. Whereas if Real Tiger 9 had only committed to 2 players, right, peeking that hillside to gatekeep them, that might actually force the Romanian team to think, okay, maybe the 2 other players are split further down, in which case it'll be a lot trickier for us to just circumvent them. So that was a little bit of a defense mistake, I would have to say, by Real Tiger 9 by giving away too much info, by committing too many players peeking that hillside to take those shots initially.
I'm not normally a fan of this area of the map where the circle finishes, because I think, you know, I think it can be very unfair for the teams. But I gotta say, La Familia impressed me in a lot of ways, and with how they kind of stuck to their area and they were like, okay, look, it might not be a game-winning area, but we know it's going to get us quite far, and we know that we can control it. And sometimes, hey, that's all you can really do, right? I thought 4 Romanian men played it well. Greek Army impressed me as well. They didn't quite execute in the right way, but this game was certainly entertaining towards the end. So big props to a lot of these teams. We are going to go to the highlights. We are going to have a bit of a break, but don't go away. We'll be back with Game 1 results. And then, of course, we'll be heading into Game 2 in Miramar. We are back here in the PUBG Mobile Europe Community Tournament. We are week 3, day number 1. We've had one game down. It was 4 Romanian men that came out on top. Myself, Imperium, and the wonderful Zute join me.
Oh, we had a wonderful game 1. All was quiet up until Circle 2. When Big started the fight, we were in for back-to-back fights all the way leading up to Circle 5. And by the time it was Circle 5, we caught like maybe a 30-second breath, and then the fights just continue to rain out. I think it's due to the fact that, you know, that circle, right, is really easily identifiable by Circle 2, where the 3 major potential game-ending zones are. And teams just kind of knew what they needed to do, what they wanted to do, which positions they wanted to prioritize, and the fighting just started from Circle 2 onwards non-stop. But taking a look at the match rankings, of course, like you mentioned, it was the 4 Romanian men that came out on top throughout all that chaos. They got a total of 28 points. Huge game for Romania. And if I remember correctly, the Romanian side was in the 4th place overall coming into today. So that's going to instantly shoot them up to maybe a 3rd or 2nd.
Definitely. Chelsmack, though, 18 points, and fair play. You know, we speak up, and justifiably we've spoken highly about Game Lord, but look, they got 0 points. Their French community teammates, they picked up the pieces and said, hey, we've got you, Game Lord, we've got you. 18 points, happy days. Of course, you know, Shadowwen got his team into a little bit of infiltration towards the end to get the team an extra couple of points. But I think a part of why he was even more happily able to do that is because, and I'm not sure fully where all of these eliminations came from, but the team had like, I think 9 eliminations before Shadowwen was left on his own. So I think that base amount of eliminations meant the survivability, the lack of risks that needed to be taken, kept Shadowwen alive for longer.
Yeah, the team quite literally died fighting on the hill, right? They had 4 players up. They put up a really valiant stand, picked up a bunch of eliminations, and it's always good to recognize when you're nearing that point. It's like, okay, we will not survive this fight. I'm going to lay my head down, find a nice spot to, you know, just hide in, as, you know, especially when that circle shift happened and they realized we have the zone. We can maybe just, you know, snake it out and now prioritize the placement points since we're down so many players. So really good job by Chasmog. And of course, Greek Army with a huge game, a 15-point game. Shout outs to the Greek Army. And 4 Romanian men, by the way, is the only Romanian team representing for today. And so for them to get a chicken on the very first match, that's a huge confidence booster for the Romanian side.
Big time, big time. To highlight a little bit more on kind of Greek, the Greek community as a whole, to be fair, they're currently lying in 10th place, so at the bottom of the table, 216 points. They're roughly about 36 points behind Portugal. I love an underdog story. Don't get me wrong, I'm supporting all these teams, but I'm always kind of like, hey, this team's down at the bottom. Let's see if they can come back up. And to see Lemniscate and Greek Army both being the top 8, I would argue it's the first game we're kind of seeing both Greek teams in the top 8, but that's a total of 20 points for the Greek community. That instantly shaves over half of the points they needed in one game to get ahead of Portugal. You add on top of that, Golden Esports are the only Portuguese representatives, and they got 0 points in game 1. That's an even bigger positive for the Greek community, so props to them.
The Greek community trying to catch up. It's never good to finish off in the very final place. Like, last place never feels good. So maybe if they could take or overtake that 9th place spot over the side of Portugal, they could. But we've seen this side of Greece really struggle, and the games are very inconsistent. Some games, very rarely, you know, they end up on that top 8, and they very rarely, with both teams representing the community, end up on top 8. This time it worked around. If they could do this like couple more times, they could overtake that 9th place position.
112 points, not to be sniffed at. We highlighted their consistency over the past couple of days. Real Tiger 9, 2 points. It's 14 in total. Just to kind of push onto that again, because they're in 8th, 302 points, only 18 behind Spain. Expect the sole Spanish representatives only got 2 points in the first game. So that's kind of automatically 12 points for UK to kind of catch up and potentially jump ahead of Spain. I'm looking at Respect. To me, they have a good bit of weight on their shoulders. They're the most notable of the 2 Spanish teams as well. So I really need to see them kind of step up in a big way in the remaining 3 games of the day.
You know, I'm noticing a little bit of a pattern as we head into this Miramar match between the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th place team. It seems like at the start of each day, it's always the 4th place community that starts off the game strong and instantly leapfrogs up to like the 2nd place, and the 2nd and 3rd to start off the day, you know, a little bit slower. Like just yesterday, I'm pretty sure we saw it was either Italy. I think it was Italy that was in 4th place, and then they had a really good day and they go up, and then the 2nd place team might have been Romania. I might be mistaken, but it's been this constant shuffle from 4th up to 2nd, and then from 2nd down to 3rd, and then 3rd down to 4th. So I think these teams are really trying hard to vie for that 2nd place position. As 1st place, I think, France, it's not impossible to catch up to them, but it is obviously very difficult as there's such a consistent region between 2 teams.
Fair. Into the 2nd game we are. The playing path is not nice. It's very heavily on the south. It does allow LMV and YMCA to grab their southern drop spots. Of course, LMV do like to go to Campo Militar. However, in this kind of playing path, they ain't getting there very quickly, so that alternative drop spot is there for them to take. Respect going to Monte Nuevo, Chasmac going towards El Pozo. Pocus, however, is going a little bit too close to comfort to a couple of the Respect players. That might bite them in the butt.
Oh, so many teams dropping at the very end of the playing path. I see maybe 5 teams dropping out, 2 teams going towards the south, 3 going more towards the north. So definitely at least 1 team I think is trying to reach that El Azahar area. But of course, in Picado, we have the rematch between the Real Tiger 9s and Mega Power.
Here we go, man. You highlighted it, you somewhat hyped it up even in the first game, and we're seeing it right in front of us. Nazgod, 0 meds, down to about 10 health. Let's see if he can pick up a couple of bandages. I don't think so. So I worry that he's stuck where he is for the time being.
Nazgod just pulled off an escape from Alcatraz. For the people that don't get the reference, Alcatraz is notoriously one of the most secure prisons in the world. Nazgod dropped in between the entirety of a 2-2 split of Mega Power. 2 players controlling the red apartments, 2 players controlling the arena. Somehow Nazgod went from the arena and has made it out alive and regrouped up with the rest of his team. You saw it was not easy. There were so many sightlines for him to run by, but Nazgod pulling off the impossible. And they're regrouped now, so it is a 4v4. Mega Power with a strong 2-2 split. The Real Tiger 9 team, not as much room to work with. And this might be a huge mistake as Malik. That could have been a bad knock by him, but he does make it in back into the safety. But you can see Real Tiger 9 really pressed in a tight spot.
Perfect biologist. It's always difficult when you want to peek up in that kind of position because you know the wrong time, the wrong place, your head's getting blown off, but it is rewarded with a knock into one of the Real Tiger 9 players. Doesn't seem like they're massively committing onto it. Logis seems to be going onto the roofs. That's a bit of a bamboozle. I like it, but the rest of the team does need to follow up.
Yeah. I like how Mega Power off of that knock, they're not like, okay, let's commit and let's push this now. But instead, off of that knock, they're like, okay, can we get a little bit closer, put a little bit more pressure? But Real Tiger 9, they're isolating the 2 players at the apartments. I think the 2 players from the apartments got too close. It needed to be the players from the arena that apply the pressure now. But the fight is going on. Now the arena players are coming in and joining the fight. And the gun
Perfect.
skills from Mega Power really raining through. It's all down to one player. The escape from Alcatraz player, Nazgod, caught in a 1v1 scenario. Is this what it's coming down to?
No, it is 2v1.
Okay.
And in the end, Rete is going to be able to clean it up. I don't mind that Mega Power kind of left it a little bit late for the two teams in the arena to move in, because I think there is technically a reason for it. But just initially, I was like, oh, why are they still there? Works out in the end. They take down Real Tiger 9 and come out on top. We're switching on over to another fight right off the bat. It's in Porto Prieto. You highlighted at the start that a number of teams are dropping quite late in towards this playing path, and this is a product of it.
Yeah, so it's 7-Up versus Red Moon. It looks like 7-Up does have all 4 alive. Red Moon, I believe, might have lost 1 player. We should be at the 60 alive count right now, but we're at 59. So yes, there we go. Red Moon down a player. Where's the rest of Red Moon, though? That's the question, as Ed does look like he's kind of left here by himself. Oh, that grenade, I'm surprised, did not do more damage. But I think the players have realized this player is isolated, and Ed does not seem to be having backup anytime soon.
Yeah, it finds one knock on the zone, has to try and switch over. Gun turns around. It's going to be George to play around the corner and get the counter knock. Red X and Coco now are going to be joining in on this fight. Jumps out of the buggy straight in with the bullets.
Oh, he just
for another. He actually walked right past, but instantly reacts. A second knock, a third knock. It's all going horribly wrong, and this is why. And I really wanted to ask this question, but I didn't think I needed to, but I really should have. What in the absolute hell was Sans doing there? Was he scratching his arse? Like,
I mean,
your team,
okay.
It doesn't matter if it's just one player. You know, you can't presume that the rest of the team of the one player you're hunting isn't going to react. Red Moon reacted and they won. You know, like, come on, man. Do you agree with me or you disagree? I'm just, yeah.
I mean,
that was just terrible.
So the nature of which the Red Moon players pulled up, the 2 players in the buggy, I think that was very unexpected. I think Zans was looking for the other 2 players just somewhere within the city at the very end, right? But Red Moon,
okay,
like a 1-2 split, that's not correct. Red Moon should not be 1-2 split, right?
Okay.
So he's thinking they're like, he's thinking they're split somewhere within the city, and his teammates obviously have given out the info. Like, we think it's just one. We think it's just one player here. So Zans is probably thinking 3v1. Okay, I'm gonna stay back, hold a wider view, look for where the other potential players might be in the city, and then that buggy just kind of slams in, super aggressive out of nowhere. Zans, of course, does not have a vehicle on hand, and from his position, he might have been able. If he was much more ready, maybe he might have put some more damage onto that buggy driving in, because that buggy did crash in on his side of the view. But Porto Prieto, I'll be honest, I'm not too familiar with his lines of sight. So maybe Zans just had his luck, cut out for him, and he just so happened couldn't see where the team pulled up.
Yeah,
I'd have to argue it was a bit more of a mistake from the defending players, though, because you saw when he stuck that revive. When a team crashes in that aggressively, like, I get it. You're like maybe 5 seconds into the revive.
You got to cancel that revive. You got to cancel it.
Just cancel it. It's a 2v2.
Okay.
You got to make yourself useful. So I think the bigger mistake there, even though it wasn't too big of a mistake, it was continuing the revive, because he just he let the player run in and just walk in for free. And yeah, I think that's the bigger mistake to focus on. But it was like the whole entire situation was more of a happenstance situation, right? You don't expect the 2 players for Red Moon to smash in that aggressively with the buggy just out of nowhere. So they were caught with their pants down a little bit, but of course they should have won that game or that fight still. They should have played that a little bit better.
Yeah, okay. Maybe I'm a little bit harsh on Sans directly, and yeah, I can definitely see where you're coming from. But either way, this game goes on. YMCA looking for a bit of a cheeky, sneaky bridge camp onto LMV. It's something that very, very rarely happens in the map of Miramar. It's happening right now. Ketu not responding. I agree with that because he doesn't want to reveal his position that early. He wants to allow the whole of you LMV to move on over so that the rest of the team can support him and shots are being fired up. He's gonna find Japan. Yeah, there's about to be at least one victim in play on that. Looks for another to Lucifigos. Gets him down to half health, but Lucifigos should be able to survive. Successful bridge camp, but maybe could have gotten a couple more kills.
Oh, you mentioned a couple more kills. Here it comes because they're chasing this team down. They realize they got one. It is a 4v3 situation, so they might be able to pick up the others. But this is unfamiliar territory for a lot of these players, and they are approaching the fight a little bit wrong. You always got to start from the highest ground up and down. That player cut a little bit through the middle, thinking LMV was in position and a good way to defend. And YMCA is slowly kind of dropping the ball on this fight. So that bridge camp, like, I like the discipline of the control, or the fire discipline of the player on the bridge. If he were to fire, his team has his support. But there's a lot of cover on the bridge, and all it takes is one grenade, and that player gets down. So I think not firing until the last player crossed was the correct move, but the follow-up, they're messing it up here. Oh, amazing nade by Larix, though. That was a crazy grenade.
Especially considering Perks threw like 3 in towards that rock and didn't connect. I know it's a little bit harder because a rock is a higher level of protection per se, but 3 compared to 1, that's clearly stronger return on investment coming out from Larix, and it puts LMV down to 2 players. Lucifigo pulls off a revive, but at what cost is the rest of YMCA swoop in because they want to clean up this fight for the Nordic regions as they look to come out on top. Perks is able to recover. He's given another life and gets a knock. However, it's traded quite quickly. Goldie now pushes forward. This is a little bit of an alternative LMV roster as they added Goldie later on, and they still are able to come out on top. Was YMCA a bit too narrow-minded with that push? Did they fail to send a player south to stop that from Goldie? Or was it just the better team won the better position?
The initial setup of the bridge camp could have been better. They had 1 player on the bridge and 3 on the high ground, right? You have to predict, if we take shots from the high ground, where is this team going to start rotating? The low ground. So they should have done somewhat of a 2-2. Before we continue any further, Mega Power getting into a fight, or actually it's more likely Big probably getting into the fight with Mega Power. It's never a team wanting to fight Big. It's always Big starting the fights. And Big, they took down Game Lord from game number 1 in a 4v4. Now they're about to take down Mega Power. I think it might have been a third-party attempt, though, out of Big, because you see Mega Power has 4 eliminations, and Big still has 4
went on to Real Tiger 9. Remember Mega Power?
Oh,
Real
yes.
The squad up earlier on. But that did slow down their disengagement away from Picado, and maybe Big...
Yes.
Loki predicted that based on what they've seen in previous days. There could have been a bit of a calculation there. I know he's quite intelligent. Either way, they push down in towards the hotel apartments of this Picado city.
This zone.
The circle has shifted over to the west. What kind of circle shift is that, man?
I love this zone. This zone it's going to be a really good game. We're going to have a lot of different isolated pockets of fighting, right? You have that giant crater. It's going to be good team fights in the north, good team fights in the south, good team fights in the west, and of course on the east side of that crater field, you got the compound. You might see a compound smash 2 play out. So this circle is absolutely beautiful. We don't actually see a circle this perfectly lined up onto the crater like this. So this is one of the first few times that we've seen like almost a perfect one. So this is going to be really fun to watch here. We do have another team coming in from the north, the side of the Game Lord, running up onto Golden Esports here. I think they're doing somewhat of a scouting here. I like where far... Notice how his bike is positioned right there. It is positioned facing away from the building. So the second he needs to make a fast getaway, he doesn't have to waste any time turning or rotating his bike around and is facing towards his teammate. So very good setup there.
Because I would say the rest of the team aren't really in a position to support him, so it is very much about him needing to get away from the side of the game, or should they push a little bit more heavily on towards that compound? Right on top, though, we see 4 Romanian men scouting around, looking for the members of Rexpect. 4 Romanian men dropping Las Leonas. They weren't really too far away from this kind of position in the circle, and maybe it's more the fact that they've allowed Rexpect to get too close for comfort, and they might want to punish them for it. However, the rest of 4 Romanian men seems to be overall disengaging away. I'm kind of even wondering what Redox bot is doing at this stage.
Redox is probably trying to figure out if they want to take this fight or not, if they have to, right? Both teams in zone, they're waiting for that circle shift. But if the circle does shift, you know, or center up right where he was scouting around, he's probably trying to gauge the enemy defense, trying to figure out how it's set up, bait out some shots at least, which, you know, baits out good info for them. But that is not going to happen just yet. Lemniscate rotating in from the south outside of the blue. They're going to be coming in from the very southern edge of the zone.
Driving through Las Leonas, I know it's kind of for the most part outside of the circle, but even I consider that just a tiny bit risky. But sometimes the kind of more unorthodox kind of riskier rotation, at least in towards the end of phase, in towards an end of a phase like phase 3, isn't really the worst thing. It's just how they, of course, are able to react to the next circle shift popping up. Will a center continually towards the kind of crater area that's in the center? No, goes heavily up north. That's a bamboozle of a rotation with Game Lord. They're already there. Kashi's on the other side of the road. However, he might want to join up with the rest of his team on what is a majority southern side of the road finish.
We're going to see a lot of teams die out on the western side here. Teams are forced to fight into strongly heavy fortified positions. Big's position, very difficult to break into. Golden's position, also difficult to break into. And just rotating around, it's clear sight lines for everybody to shoot at. So we're going to lose a lot of players on this circle. Golden, as I just said, already taking shots at teams trying to venture in a little bit closer to them.
And it's not that they need to, like, massively engage or massively get the eliminations. They just need to manipulate and push teams around them to force to take all their fights either in the blue or in another part of the circle. So you're dead right about Golden Esports. So 100, they might opt to wait until the final moments to push in towards the edge of the circle. It's not a bad call. They're looking for 4 Romanian men, and this is even why I kind of asked about what 4 Romanian men, or at least Redox bot, was doing a little bit closer to the end of the previous circle, because that shift, it looks like they don't really know what they wanted to do, and that confusion has kind of forced them to pay a bit of a price. However, for what they lack in decision making, they make up in gun skill as Redox steps up and gets a knock on the daddy with the help of Sarah.
Yeah, that circle shift was a very hard one, very unpredictable one. So yeah, 4 Romanian men got thrown into a little bit of a question mark. So they're wanting to, you know, do a wrapping rotation, but they realized so many teams are still positioned around here, so they're gonna have to just cut straight in. You see them right there cutting straight in into the La Familia side. That's also trying to break into the circle of Golden. Unfortunately for Big, everybody did not want to go the big side of the rotation. That is, yeah, 4 Romanian men losing 1 player. It's a full send YOLO. At this point, that's all they could do, and they managed to find a shack to survive in for now with 2 of their players, Game Lord, having that hard shift to their side. They're just going to chill and space out a little bit, maintain info, maintain pressure onto teams that might be trying to come in on a wrapping rotation.
Also, the highlight within this circle, there's also quite a good few flat areas, so it's really difficult to kind of go in deep too quick, because they're kind of left with nothing and surrounded kind of 360 degrees by teams. So I really do feel for the decisions that the teams have to make. Rexpect have the southeastern edge of the circle under their control, but Greek army are looking for a breach. They throw the nade out, send Salazar back a little bit. Nice reactions by Salazar, avoids the majority of the damage, but where's the rest of his team? How focused are they? Another nade puts Salazar down to about 30 health, and he has to pull off the first aid. Lemniscate Chesh is a little bit further in the distance, might be able to be a bit of a thorn in the side and help his Greek army teammates to find the breach onto Rexpect. Salazar again, where's the rest of Rexpect?
I expect they have the sightlines. They're helping. They're helping from a distance, but the angles are not too good. I do think one of the Rex players were knocked, and so they were getting revived. So Greek Army managing to open up with one, but they're still at a huge disadvantage with two players coming in from the low ground. Smoke's being thrown, but oh, this player in the blue actually getting a very nice angle onto two of the players in Greek Army. This is the Greek Army we need to see from day number one. They're playing absolutely confident here, and they're just, I mean, they're pushing well. They have the cover set up. They're getting the openings. They're getting the shots in. Can they close out this fight though?
Yeah, it seems like they're going to be able to do. What I love about this breach and this push is that it was very methodical. They didn't go too crazy. They weren't like, okay, we're just going to go in blind. We were like, okay, step by step, nade by nade, push by push, second by second, and it's rewarded with a clean squad wipe on towards the members of Respect. And, you know, yeah, okay, they might not have been in the position to support Salazar, but if you're not in the position to support Salazar, why is Salazar there in the first place? Why are you there in the first place? That's one thing I would argue with regards to Respect's position. This game goes on to the next phase. Phase 5 did push up towards North and La Familia. They are running rings around the players out in front of them. But Greek Army, they've had a good couple of games so far. They're going to be looking for a breach.
La Familia in a three-way fight now. Big is getting involved also in this fight. No big surprise there. And I notice how Big sees the sightlines of the next area of the circle they want to go to. So they're just going to leave it till the last second to go in because they know what they're going to do next, and they're going to pressure out the teams on their sides, force them to rotate away from that pocket or pick up a few eliminations. So Big playing this late game pretty well here. La Familia, they're just going to avoid the fight entirely, and I think they circled away to that north or southeastern edge side. Game Lord once again with a nice circle shift right on top of them, so deciding to prioritize the northwest. Pretty good spread there too. Greek Army coming in, losing another player now. Up to 6 eliminations though. That's really good for the Greek Army side.
I think the reason why Game Lord haven't pushed on towards Chazmak's compound is because they fear that they could get third party by another team overlooking Chazmak, so they're just kind of biding their time, waiting a little bit longer until they hear the kill feed subside a little bit more heavily down towards our southeast side as Chazmak do finish off the rest of Greek Army. A good effort indeed, but it's not meant to be too much further in towards this game. Last player of Mega Power, Logist, trying to pull off a heel strap. Miramar, question mark, but it can work out. Fives Mazzaro is going to be the doozy and the twozy, and Mihi does get the return fire. However, that's a core player of Big taken out.
That's that one Mega Power player that they never ended up hunting down, and it comes to bite them in the butt. Mega Power getting a slight revenge for getting taken out by the Big team. Next zone has shifted up, and well, this is just a Game Lord blessed game, right? Northern hard shift for the past 4 circles in a row. Game Lord better secure this chicken dinner, especially given the fact that it's Game Lord, right? It's such a strong team, and they get all the circle shifts in their favor. They should get that control down. Great grenades by Chazmak. And now Game Lord, after the zone has come out again, now they realize, all right, priority-wise, we need to hurt this team. We need to at least weaken this team to some degree, force them into a tougher position so we can take advantage of them on the next circle.
The French Revolution continues to dominate here in the PUBG Mobile Europe Community Tournament. Omelette du fromage, as 4 teams are left up and 2 of them are from the French community. Game Lord, full squad. Chazmak with 3 players up. They go for the deep push in towards the edge of the circle, are able to survive for the time being. Big still up as a duo. The revive came out onto Mihi. It's actually Germany against France. The 2 German teams going up against the 2 French teams. And I gotta say, by the way, LV rotated that compound, I think 1 circle ago. It might not be like the game-winning rotation, the game-winning compound, but it certainly was a very strong decision-making late position compound. It's gonna work out. They're still alive. Perk sends himself up across the road. He's still got a bit of health, but has he got a first aid on board? Lucifigo supports him.
Big down to 2 players right now. I think they lost another player earlier on. LMV, like you mentioned, with a great rotation in the previous circle, sets them up to entry in to the side of all the engagement. You can see right here, they have 3 teams in front of them, but they're at a safe spot to kind of lay their heads down and time a fight out well. Game Lord getting pushed now by Chasmok. Chasmok with 2 players still could definitely put in some damage. Game Lord definitely does
Oh, be
not want to
careful,
lose
Pocus.
anymore. Yeah, that fire getting extremely close to his butt.
Jesus. Like, are your toes a little bit singed there, Pocus? He's gonna cook up a molly of himself. Lucifigos tries to make the push across with his teammate, and it doesn't quite work out. Perks is gonna go down, and Goldie is left to his own devices. Gonna go for the revive in towards the smokes. Big Me is gonna take a little bit of damage. Third party though from Pocus tries to get the knock into one of the Chasmok players. Does not work out. The kill is stolen. Elimination taken away by the members of Big. Still 9 eliminations for Chasmok off the back of 10 in the first game, and clearly a much more aggressive French side in the last couple of days, and you can't argue it's going to work wonders for them. 9 eliminations for Big as well. They still have 2 up. I don't know how they've been able to keep these 2 players alive, but they're still going. However, the circle is against them.
Game Lord should secure this win now, especially after they got the circle again. But I will say, you saw how many different angles that Game Lord had to worry about with LMV coming from their side. We have Chasmok pushing in, and we have the oversight of Big. So Game Lord, this was not an easy defense by any means. Game Lord players are just playing so on point. They're multitasking, communication and control of each angle. Their gunfire definitely not missing a beat, and Big is about to be taken out. We're down to 2 teams. Michi 1v2, not looking too good for him. Game Lord realizes this, and they get the game secured. Game Lord with an absolutely great defensive spacing and zoning. Yes, they did get the circle
for sure
a lot of times, but they made adjustments every single circle shift. We saw them readjust into a different formation, so it was a very proactive, defense out of the side of Game Lord. And who knows, if Game Lord was a lesser team, even if they got all those circles, there's a good chance they might have, readjusted too tight and just given away too much control, or they could have been too spread and lost players early on. So Game Lord with very good adjustments still, and of course the gun skills towards the end. We saw them getting pushed by multiple teams. We saw multiple angles pressuring them down, and they lost players adjusting throughout that fight. They went from 4 down to 2, so it was not an easy win where they just easily kept 4 players alive. It was a really good job by Game Lord.
Yeah, can't argue with it, and it was honestly just so good to see kind of the top 4 teams from the 2 communities that are kind of battling for first. I know that gap is there, of course, for the time being, but it's so good to see. I would argue it's the first game we're really kind of seeing that, where that domination of the top 2 communities is showing up. LMV impressed me massively though, because again, this is a roster that I don't want to say struggle, but had a pretty good first week. Then the PMPL qualifiers happened. They didn't make it into PMPL. You saw the damage from that in week 2, where the majority of the original roster isn't playing. And then for week 3, they bring in another player, Goldie. Lucifigos haven't really heard of before. And I gotta say, it's worked out. That was a big brain rotation. It got them in towards the top 4 and a decent amount of eliminations. Well done, guys.
All 4 teams towards the end, play that really well. The side of LMV with that nice rotation that you just mentioned. Of course, Game Lord with the constant readjustments of formation. Big controlling their spacing, playing aggressive, playing that style that they always play, making it into the late game for once. And they didn't get the chicken, but I think that wasn't an easy chicken either for them. And Chasmok, controlling the eastern side, navigating their side in, and so all 4 teams played the end game beautifully well.
Love that little bit of a shade on Big. Gotta keep the pressure on them, of course. We know what they're capable of, and that's why we highlight these kind of things. Well, the break is going to be upon us. We're going to show you the highlights. As I mentioned, the word highlight, but don't go away. The results for game 2, followed up by game 3 within a couple of minutes. Where are we? Oh yeah, we're here at the PUBG Mobile European League tournament. I'm Imperium. He's Utay. He's a legend. Look at him. Look at him. Just look at him. Look how good he is. Look how amazing he is. But it's not really about him. It's not really about me. It's about these amazing teams. And the second game has just finished, and it was a hell of an ending. A hell of an ending.
Yeah, I think the pacing of the game was really good too. Just like the first game, we had some early action, and then from there on, it just kept ramping up. The zone shifts were also really nice today. It's shifting in a way where teams are ending up fighting for certain positions on the map that is quite familiar, and teams are very aware of the different power positions on each circle. There's none of that really like kind of we're either just going to be forced to, you know, make it into this zone or we're dead, right? There's always different, there's been different axis of entries, different positions teams can fight in for. We saw Greek army of all teams, you know, doing a really tough entry point in, and they actually broke into that circle, of course, you know, facing a lot of casualties, but the shifts have set up in a way for a lot of these teams to be able to do something as far as, you know, the RNG of the circle goes.
Yeah, and I feel for a lot of teams towards the end stages of, well, I suppose when it shifted massively up towards the kind of crater area in the northwest, I think it was phase 3 or phase 4, because a lot of the center part of that circle was really not obtainable at all, so it did leave a lot of fights on the edge of the circles. Yeah, you're right, there was definitely a lot of entry points around the edge of the circles, but it did create a couple of strong clusters. But it was great to watch as you look at the match rankings of that second game. Game Lord, they got the chicken dinner, 22 points, but you can see that like it's very kind of spread out between the top 7, to be fair.
Yeah, and the biggest thing, France, right? First place team, Game Lord and Chasmak both have a huge game, and then Germany, the second place region, Big and LMB, both having a really big game. So this is what I'm talking about. We were saying, you know, Germany, if they have a big game, they can maybe catch up to France, right? But the French side, they're just not letting up the gas. Their consistency, as well as far as how well they do game by game, is not slowing down. So even if Germany has a huge game, which they did, France will answer it right back, and they're going to keep that point gap. If anything, France gained points on Germany of a total of 5 points that match. 22 and 22 get canceled out, and then 19 and 14.
Yeah.
That chase for first place, it's like dangling a carrot in front of a horse right now. That's what it feels like.
Of course, I think that kind of carrot is a little bit longer than a normal carrot. It's like a super grown carrot. I know, I don't know where I'm going with this, but my point is that coming into today's games, France did have a good 80-point lead, 82-point lead. In today's 2 games, France has gotten 59 points and Germany has gotten 37 points. So I mean that like that lead is still extending, unfortunately, for Germany. They're putting up a good fight, but with 2 more games to go, there has to be that element of in some way, targeted or not, shutting the French community down, right? When you're thinking competitively, I know there's still another 5 days to go. Honestly, if I was a German community, I'd be thinking like, okay, do you want to hot drop on Game Lord and we'll hot drop on Chasmak? I look at that as going, fair is fair, just hot drop on one respective team. It doesn't have to be now, it doesn't have to be tomorrow. But if it continues the way the French community are continuing it, it's going to get to the point where it's going to be a little bit too hard to deal with.
That could happen if second place was well secured for them, though, right? There's the Italian side and the Romanian side that are like pretty much right on their heels still. So if they were to, you know, go for that first place spot, that might just end up giving up their second place if things go a little bit awry. So I wish Germany was more secured in second place. Then we might see that last-ditch effort to take over first place by hot dropping on them. But I think for now, fighting for the second place is also probably on their minds, as Italy and Romania just literally a match's points away in difference.
Yeah, that's a really fair point. I still think, look, In the words of Ricky Bobby, if you're not first, you're last anyway. So, what's the difference between second and third in that regard? Of course, there's money involved, so I understand why they want to hold on to their second place and not take too much of a risk. A team that has been taking more risks and it extends to the whole community is Greek Army and Greece as a whole. 31 points in today's first two games. We've seen them being able to more comfortably swoop in on the edge of the circles. I think Sandhawk is going to be kind of their biggest test of today when you're looking at a strategy of playing in from the outside to the edge of the circle, because that becomes a lot more difficult. But with how they've been playing it so far, I think they have it in their hands very nicely.
So you said they've scored 31 or 32 points in the two games?
The whole Greece community have scored 31 points.
In the two games, okay.
Yes.
I will do some math as we get into the game, but 31 points in two games. They've played a total of 10 days already, or right? How many days are?
Yeah, it's technically been 9 because the last game yesterday. Okay. Yeah, I know. It's kind of tough to calculate, but yeah, it's definitely a big improvement, though, right? I think that's where you're going with it.
Yeah, it's a big improvement. I am gonna pull up the calculator and count and calculate the percentage of improvement. But first, let's take a look at Sandhawk. We have the map on your screen right now. Plane path is out, a really good plane path, and we've seen some hot drops, like some hot drops that just have been happening randomly almost lately. It's been a quiet start for most of all the days of Sandhawk, but there is this fight. I do remember this Big deciding to just take over this spot from the real Tiger 9, and of course Big won the last time, and it does. Oh my gosh, did Miki just sniper someone in the kill? Oh, did he just sniper another person in the kill feed? Miki just hip fired.
Dear God.
Hip fired with the M24 2 players of Real Tiger 9.
Dear God.
Okay. Malik. I think one of them was a knock and thirst. That one's a thirst, but still. His name has popped up 3 times with a sniper.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't really know what to make of it. Is this something that we've kind of seen at least from Big more heavily in the Sandhawk games? Because I know I was missing a couple of days where they're changing their drop spot to the eastern side of the map as opposed to the northwest island.
Yeah, I think they just want to take an isolated fight. All right, because it's so difficult to take one of those. Zan's making a last stand right now, 1v2. He gets one player, but of course the number advantage comes through. 7-up down to just Starkey now. And I think Big just finished off another player of Real Tiger 9. And we have Redmond here with Greece Army. So the playing path was very favorable for all these teams to go wherever they want to go. I just think teams are really trying to switch up what they want to do as we near the end of this tournament on Sandhawk. Maybe a lot of these teams like Big, can't capitalize on their strengths on Miramar and Erangel, so they just switched it up to just drop on a team to continuously be able to take an isolated 4v4. Because on Sandhawk, if you don't take the 4v4 in the beginning of the match, you can easily get third party like 3-4 minutes in taking a team fight with another team as teams start rotating.
Phase 1, it's predominantly southwest, but still a good chunk of mainland and northwest island in play. Nobody's dropped in the northwest island as it happens. That's really, really interesting to me. That does, if Game Nord are a little bit aware of it, kind of opens the door for them to rotate across the bridge through the road of the northwest island and kind of hang around the trifecta area. I noticed the LMV change up their drop spot as well from the trifecta, split over to Mong Nai. I've seen them use Mong Nai in the past, but I didn't think they'd kind of what looks like maybe permanently change their drop spot.
So I ran some of the calculations on the Greece community side. So 216 points, right, over the course of 9 days. Let's just do a rough estimate of, they managed to play a total of 4 games each of those days. I know sometimes one of the teams are sitting out, but more or less they're averaging 6 points per
Okay.
per day,
Yeah.
meaning, yeah, 6 points per day, and
Yeah.
now, or 6 points per match. So 6 points, and then just now you said 31 in 2 games, right?
Yes.
That goes up to 15.5. So
Yeah.
from 6 to 15.5, that is more than a 200% increase in performance. Like, we're highlighting this a lot because really, like, the out of the Greece side, they have really been stepping it up only just the past 2 days, and they're looking a little
Yeah.
bit better and better each day.
Well, we'll have to wait and see if that's going to be stopped dead in their tracks. The hands of Starkey, the final player, 7 up, was able to get 2 knocks onto Versace and Freezy. Now Shesh, believe he is the last player up for Lemniscate. It's a massive risk to try and cross the road, though, when you think about it, because Starkey is going to have basically 3 shots, and there you go.
Why?
Really? Really? I know. Like, it's like the age-old question, why did a chicken cross the road? Why did Shesh cross the road? To go for pointless revives? I couldn't ask for an easier kill. And then we move on towards the members of Chazmak. They're taking the fight against LMV. This is outside the circle. It is going to be Chazmak being put under a decent bit of pressure. Shadowman was knocked. LMV have a couple of players in the back line. Japan is further away, and that could pose a bit of pressure for LMV, but for the time being, they're in control.
I like how Chasmok is trying to support their teammate of Shadowwind, right? Shadowwind got isolated, got caught out, and Chasmok, they're here to see if they can do anything. But notice how they're not hard committing and instantly getting wiped
Yes.
by LMV. They're poking around, they're prodding around, they're seeing if they can make something happen. They're not just crossing the road to try and get to Shadowwind, like, you know, that player from that we saw earlier. So I like this attempt out of Chasmok. Their teammate
Japan.
Shadowwind does get finished.
Be careful. Oh, Japan, what are you doing? What are you doing? Come on. You can't run out in the open like that. Your teammate had just got knocked. You can't allow that to happen. Sorry to cut you off there, Zute, but I was just so amazed at what was happening. And now Lucifigo got dropped goalie is left on his own. It's inside the Blues, taking a hell of a lot of damage. Just have plenty of first aids. Took out the smoke to try and give him an element of protection. Wraps around towards the underside. There's going to be a little bit of window in play. Nearly comes out on top. Not quite. Azer wins it. And that's going to be a squad wipe for Chasmak.
Beautifully played by Chasmok. I think, of course, LMV kind of, you know, dropped the ball there, made some mistakes, like you called out Japan.
Yeah.
It's the problem of when your teammates get knocked and you feel the need to help them. Yes, you do need to support the team, but you still have to play smart. Otherwise, you just end up throwing away your own life and ultimately hurting the team. But at the end of the day, Chasmok pick up 4 elim points simply because they tried to see if they could do anything, right? They made the attempt to save their teammate. If their teammate never got knocked, they wouldn't have felt a need to take that fight. But they tried to see if they can save their teammate, and they played it very controlled. The priority wasn't, we have to save them, we have to get to them. It was, let's see if we can do anything about this. And it ended up turning into a 4 elim point start for them.
The word you use that really stands out for me, and I don't think it's used enough when we describe plays in PUBG Mobile, was controlled. So many of the top teams, they play in such a way that it might not look controlled, but it is, because they're just so good at what they do that even if in the eyes of casuals or even other analysts, it maybe looks a little bit frantic, it is controlled, and that was kind of one of those moments. It was a bit more obvious from Chazma, but yeah, you said it perfectly. Controlled engagement, got the squad. We move on over. We're under a little bit of pressure at the hands of 4 Romanian men. They've disengaged away. Game Lord still looting up, going through boot camp. Phase 2, by the way, it did shift down quite heavily southeast, where it's eliminated pretty much the whole of the Northwest Island, but the mainland and the Southwest Island very easily shifted in one of those directions.
This Sandhog game, we are definitely having way less players than usual. All right, we've seen a lot more fights in the beginning of the match than we have ever have during this tournament of Sandhawk. So we're down to 42, and it is only Circle 2. This might make it a lot easier for these teams in the late game, of course, with less teams around them. And we might see, a few, maybe 3 to 4 dominant teams controlling each side of the circle as the shifts continue on, since there's a lot less of chaos that might happen in the late game with less players involved.
Garmy, full squad up. One of the Red Moon players, Coco, kind of rogue away from the rest of his team. That worries me a little bit. It's a big spread Red Moon have, though. Good information gathering. Could be at the cost of losing a player early on in the game, as Phase 2 Blue Zone is about halfway through.
Next circle will be shifting on up very soon. Chasmog, of course, on the far eastern side, because they did have to deal with that team fight. They did try to see if they could revive Shadowwind, but they got vehicles. Chasmog Gaming, a very experienced team. They could actually utilize those vehicles probably very well to make a strong rotation regardless of where the next shift is. More teams stacked on the eastern side of the map as the circle has shifted a little bit more west on the previous shifts. Many teams all set up around the center. We see Pine On being taken but by a 2-man of Rex. So there's a good opportunity for another team to entry in without being fully gate kept out. Red Moon taking that east hill of Pine On, that giant sprawling hilltop, controlling a lot of the territory. Mega Power with a nice split north of Pine On. And Game Lord, I think their plan is to just entry into whatever point and fight their way in, which is why they're just remaining quiet in boot camp and they're willing to take the next few fights that they might have to. But with that circle shift, that might not be the case. Mega Power get center circle. Let's see how they readjust this. We see one player getting in that car, maybe leaving his location, or they might just be discussing if we can hold the split still.
Wait, why is there a Red Moon player all the way down in Camp Charlie? What? Okay, I'm not really gonna think about it too much, but yeah, that you couldn't have a bigger split at this stage of the game, and with Phase 3 popping up, I think it's important that the whole of Red Moon, or at least a majority of Red Moon, Versace, Red X, and Coco, kind of band a little bit more heavily together if they can to target one area. I'm looking at possibly the area where Coco is to support him to move up that hill, but he's starting to make a move as our Chasmac using those vehicles, as you pointed out, just to full send it into the circle.
That is a full send and a half. I don't know about that one. I get Chasmog is down to 3, and they don't want to just have to fight all the way in. But I would have argued maybe wrap around and then just entry point fight to another side of the circle. You got hard shifted, so you don't want to hard shift fight your way on Sandhawk on the hard shift side, so just wrap around and then fight your way into another side of the circle. Don't rotate straight down the middle. That rarely ever works on Sandhawk. We saw Pocus might have gotten through, which is why I think they try to group up with him, because he somehow managed through everything and stayed alive. But I mean, they can still have a good game. They still have 2 up, maybe just 1 up. Other teams, though, YMCA, nice vehicle bait right there. Larix taking just the buggy, trying to scout up the hill, and they had 3 players covering. So a nice little info gather there. Red Moon holding this hill, holding a wide split, doing a very good job for now. But we'll have to see what their next plan is if the circle shifts away. And earlier, Coco was on top of that rock, right? I just want to say he looked like a mountain goat. just like you know how mountain goats can stand on rock edges, diagonally sticking out. That's exactly what he looked like.
Coco the mountain goat. Yep, I'm here for it. Well observed, and I like the fact that Red Moon did kind of band together in a core area of the circle that I wanted to see them pull off, and you highlighted it's a pretty good spread. They even had one player looking in the other direction just to kind of make sure that they're covered. Left Familiar down towards the south side, now pushing in. They're able to pick up a lovely fresh crate with some goodies inside for them to keep themselves perched up. 7 up the last player, Starkey. Just a matter of hoping to survive until the bitter end. Until then, I played a snake game. Only has 4 first aid, so no heal strat coming on through big. They dropped more towards the eastern side of the map, and they were rewarded with a couple of kills early on. They hold onto the far east Game Lord. I actually don't mind, even though I wasn't a fan of them going into boot camp on phase 2. I actually get why they're just staying there in phase 3, because I think it's a kind of position where they just need to commit and hope for the best in the next circle shift.
And even fighting out of boot camp right now, they have to go down south up into Mega Power. Usually that hilltop is really hard to breach, but more often than not, when they do have to breach it, other teams have to travel through it as well. So they're going to try and become like an arrowhead of sorts and pincer in whatever team holds the hill. So I think that's their plan. Or they might be making a more interesting, complex rotation with their vehicles coming out.
Sticking to the coastal line, I think that's the best path. The second this circle shifted, I looked at that coastal line and thought that's the way that Game Lord can enter.
Yeah, very good understanding and pre-planning of just what they're gonna do from boot camp. That's why they sit in boot camp. They have different plans of action ready, regardless of where the circle goes. So sometimes when teams look like they're not doing anything, well, that's because they're prepared for any possible situation.
And did you notice that 2 of the players had a vehicle on the very eastern side of boot camp, and 2 had vehicles on the very west? So whatever direction that circle shifted, they kind of had an angle to rotate from. So yeah, really well set up by Game Lord.
I mean, of course, we're highlighting Game Lord so much because they have been so consistent throughout the entirety of the tournament that if they do something on our screens, it is not by accident. It is most likely a pre-planned setup or a practiced engagement of some sort. Now, we have other teams trying to rotate in now on that circle shift. It did go towards the west. That's going to cause a lot of the teams on the east, of course, to be forced into engagements. And we're seeing some players starting to drop off in the kill feed. But of course, this is a very slow late game because we lost so many players early on. La Familia getting opening onto the 4 Romanian men, but they traded back. So a 1-for-1 trade. This does allow La Familia to get ever so closer to breach into this circle, though.
Zingy? That's a former Panda player, Zingy, if I'm not mistaken. I believe he resides in Italy, so that does count. Very, very good player to pick up for La Familia. Argue with that one. Let's see if he can help his team pull out a bit of a chicken dinner as YMCA. They lost 2 players, but they're able to find a knock on one of the Red Moon players that was a little bit rogue, and now they're trying to breach in towards the south side. It's Mega Power going to power their way through to protect themselves against Golden Esports. One of the players is knocked down, but in with the vehicle, the cavalry rise. Logis is somewhat on his own as 2 of the other players are a little bit further away. They're taking their own fight against Big. You split too heavily, you pay the price, and that's what's working out for Mega Power.
Mega Power? Yeah, it's working out, but on the other side of things, they lose. I think they lose everybody. I think Mega Power is just down to 1. Took a team fight with 2 different teams, and La Familia not able to reach into that circle. I wanted to see the player that was up close with a grenade earlier just put more pressure. He started backing up. I think that was a problem. They got a 1-for-1 knock, but off that opening, you need to add more pressure, not back up for a reset, because their team is still at the disadvantage outside of zone, and since they gave them the space, they're getting picked apart now. Logis, last one up for Mega Power. We question how would they hold their split 2 circle shifts ago, and here it is. They got the circles, but the adjustments was not made correctly this time.
PUBG Mobile isn't a kettle of water where if you boil, you have to turn the power off so it doesn't overboil and overspill. You gotta sometimes continue to apply that pressure, turn that heat up so you can swing it around. And as you said, it goes against La Familia. The next circle does shift over to the west. It's on that southwest island. This is where I do feel sorry for the teams, because that kind of circle shift, it kicks all the teams in the mainland in the face.
Yeah, I think we got 3 circles in a row that hard shifted to the west side. So the east side is definitely heating up. A lot of these teams are just, they're forced to take these kind of fights. It's just the RNG of the circle. Make do with what you got. And Golden with some nice jump shots, and he's gonna go for a little bit more.
And
wow, okay. No.
Okay, BK. He doesn't even allow that to happen. He's gonna jump in towards the buggy and let's hope for the best. Big make their way down the hill. They have Game Lord, the trolls of this game. It's ironic that they're green in terms of color, just like Shrek. Gonna be that little bit of a hassle for Big, as 4 Romanian men, they hold on towards the other side as well, so I can't see Big surviving for too much longer. 7 teams left, 17 players.
I love how Game Lord took this position, right? Teams don't play underneath the bridge until they're kind of forced to by the late game circles. The Game Lord recognized one circle shift earlier. Let's just full send underneath the bridge. Most likely it is not occupied.
Exactly.
And they take good advantage of their vehicles. That is how you want to rotate on Sandhawk with vehicles. They were sitting in boot camp the whole time, and now they find themselves in a potential game-winning position.
And that's where that rotation onto the coastline allowed them to make it. But as you said, like a lot of teams, they wouldn't make that call, right? Whereas Game Lord, they're not only confident of themselves, but they just like, look, it's either going to work out or it's not. Indeed, it's worked out. Greek Army, I said, Sandhawk was going to be their biggest test in terms of playing in towards the edge of the circle. And it's not just Sandhawk, but the teams that are currently in this Sandhawk position. 4 Romanian men at the high ground. They have control. Shots into the veto by Sarah will get a knock executed. 2 players left for Greek Army. They're in to the circle, so now they can lay low and hope that 4 Romanian men gets distracted by others.
4 Romanian men with 3. I believe Game Lord still has 4. And Greek Army, once again, making it into the late game. Greek Army looking like a completely different game. Or a different team, I'm sorry. As Game Lord, one of them gets knocked right there by the 4 Romanian men side. Next circle shifts out. Oh, this one does favor 4 Romanian men slightly. One of their players already in the zone, and I think he does have a nice piece of cover to peek and shoot from. Greek Army, they're just gonna have to prone their way in, as they're gonna be smack dab in the middle of 2 teams.
4 Romanian men, they ate their Weetabix this morning, or what is the Romanian version of Weetabix. They've already won 1 game today. They're looking for second, the dessert on top of the Weetabix. However, with Game Lord getting the revive onto their knocked teammate, that leaves them up as a full squad 4v4v2, as I feel sorry for Greek Army whittled in between these 2 teams. They do have the edge of the circle. Akashi, he's prone down cooking up a nade. I think he has a strong idea that there's a couple of players in towards the other side of that hill at the edge of the circle. Shots onto Sarah. That's perfectly thrown by Akashi. Nothing Molasses can do. It's like that slow motion of, uh-oh, I'm cooked. Down he goes, but they do have to deal with the rest of 4 Romanian men. The spray's coming on up. Sarah gets a knock onto Akashi. It is returned with the play zone. Rana, Dewey, the 2 players up for 4 Romanian men. In towards a side angle. Stymo, nothing he can do. He's left to his own devices. Just hope that Game Lord helps him a little bit. He's going to be proactive, moving around, knows that the nades are going to be flying either side of him, and the rock often at times is actually a little bit of a bait play to move on to, and as he moves away, he's going to be protected for the time being. Akashi, he was knocked down, he was crawling to his knees to try and get information for the rest of his team. But down goes Greek Army at the hands of a Narvello nade, left with 2 teams, 4 Romanian men and Game Lord.
Game Lord does have the circle advantage, though. They also have a slight hillside right here. You can see that Narvello could work with, where they can lay prone and see the enemies coming in, but they cannot get shot at. The smoke's though coming through. I don't think we've seen many smokes being thrown out yet, so I do imagine 4 Romanian men have a few more smokes. They could smoke off the sightlines of Game Lord as they're pressing in. It looks like they just have the one to work with, and Narvello and Robs timing their util now very perfectly. They realize this is the moment where 4 Romanian men is moving in with the blue zone closing behind them. Narvello with another grenade. This one should connect, and it does. And gets Dewey down to 1 HP, and that opens up for Narvello to push, and there we go. 2v1 push. Beautifully well done by Game Lord. 2 chickens in a row. Last game, they got the circle quite a few times, but they made beautiful adjustments. This time around, it almost looks like they got the circle, but they were in boot camp the whole time, and they just know their rotations. They have their pre-planned executions down to a T, and they just rotated into the late game and closed it out with 4 players up. Of course, they lost 2 towards the end, but they kept 4 up until the very final engagement.
Back-to-back chicken dinners, man. It's just not stopping for Game Lord and the whole French community, to be perfectly honest. There was that element of circle look in terms of it shifting away from the mainland, and that did kick a lot of the mainland teams in the face. We saw T decide a big, just not really being able to do anything, and then whatever else happened to the other teams in the mainland, it was just never really going to go their way. But it was really just what we talked about with Game Lord in terms of, yeah, okay, they rotated to boot camp in phase 2. I wasn't a massive fan of it. But, you know, it's not always about where you position yourself in the first couple of circles. It's that exit strategy, right? It's the exit play. And the second that third circle shifted, they were on that coastline with those vehicles. And then the next circle shifted and they instantly went for the bridge push, and they held onto that bridge position. They were protected on any of the teams that were on that Southwest Island that happened to be 4 Romanian men. And yeah, just kind of job done. It was just a cleanly executed chicken dinner. There's not really much more that can be said about that.
Definitely not. It's Game Lord after all. The most consistent team right now out of all the teams playing. So just a lot to be studied from them. And you can take a look at some of their plays and say, oh, maybe they got a little bit lucky here. But if you really go into the minute details, and if you were able to hear their comms, I'm sure there's a lot more pre-planning going on versus getting that circle luck. But that is it for match number 3. We still got one more left, so don't go anywhere, guys. We're going to take a quick break and take a look at some of the highlights from the previous game.
Let's go! According to Sniper Cedar in my ear, saying let's go. We're back here in the PUBG Mobile Europe Community Tournament. Technically it's day number 10. We're in week 3. There's 6 days of this week, of course, as we know by now. We just finished our 3rd game of the day. And would you believe it? Would you believe it, Zute? Would you believe it? That game
What am I believing? Oh, no. I mean, Game Lord at this point getting a back-to-back, like, yes, that is a major accomplishment, but it's not like, oh my god, Game Lord. Like, it's more like, all right, Game Lord's gonna continue being Game Lord. Like, they're just playing it really well, closing out games. We don't see them make like mistakes when they lose players. It's not like a, oh, that should not have happened. It's more like, it is what it is, and they just had to, you know, take those players. They created the pressure, the openings for the other two to play out the rest of the Game Lord, having a spectacular day still. And I gotta say, the matches today, it hasn't been too wild or crazy by any means, but it's been looking very structured, and we see teams, you know, we see what they're trying to do. We see the executions, and it's not, you know, super messy either. They're pulling, you know, they're making the plays and they're executing it well. There might be some little, you know, mistakes here and there, but every team looks really on form today.
Yeah, definitely. I would 110% agree. Looking at the match rankings of that 3rd game, we said Game Lord won 23 points, but it was, of course, that you know, Sanok-esque distribution of points with 4 Romanian men, 11 eliminations, also 23 points, and they nearly got their 2nd chicken dinner of the day. They started with the chicken dinner. Their 2nd game, they only got 2 points. But as the sole Romanian representatives in today's games, they're stepping up in a big way with another strong result.
Check out Greek Army, though. This has got to be the highest placement finish we've ever seen from them. And it's a good balance of elims and placement points. Like, Greek Army has come a super long way. On the other side of things, though, Lemniscate. I feel like at the very start of the tournament, Lemniscate was the better half of the Greece side. Lemniscate played a little better than the Greek Army. Yeah, but it's great to see Greek Army starting to flourish and improve upon themselves. Now it's up to Lemniscate to kind of catch up to Greek Army side, and we still have a couple of days left, and hopefully this gives them a little bit inspiration of like, hey, if Greek Army can pull their way up, even though we started off on a better foot, we should be able to do the same.
And that's where we also need to see in this final game something big from the Italian representatives. Red Moon, and La Familia. In today's 3 games, they've only scored a total of 31 points. The reason why I say only 31 points, because they got 2 teams representing that community in today's games. Whereas when you look at Romania, who are in 4th and not that far behind them, they've got 1 representative. That team scored 53 points.
Yeah, 4 Romanian men without their counterparts of the Eastern Stars is absolutely wrecking it right now. A great job to 4 Romanian men, especially being the only team representing the region for today. Well, you talk about Italy, we talk about Romania. What about the side of Germany? I feel like Germany, you know, Big has shown up.
They have
today. They have that Miramar game. They played really well. 14 points this Sandhog match. It is actually looking pretty good, but it's not a huge standout performance, right? Like, when you're in the top 4, when we're comparing you to the French side of Game Lord, when we're comparing you to right now 4 Romanian men that has had almost 2 chicken dinners, even though Big out of Germany's, Big and LMV combined efforts out of Germany, they're doing pretty well, but it's not the big leagues well, right? We need to see a huge game out of this region. And with 1 match left to go, this could be it.
Yeah, fair. It's more the fact that, you know, and I would argue it's kind of been the same nearly every day. They're just being overshadowed by Game Lord, right? This, you know, that's the thing. Germany as a community has scored 52 points in the 3 games. That's really not bad.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
France has scored 88. So again,
Exactly.
that kind of that cushion, it's increasing. It's turning into a double mattress. It's very comfortable for France right now because they were coming in today with a good 82 point lead. On a side note, I did get confirmation from the player that who I pronounce as Zingy from La Familia,
Mm,
not the player from Panda. It's actually
okay.
just a player just called, it's pronounced Sheeny.
Mm,
So I apologize, and hopefully I'll get that IGN name right in the last game of the day and any future games. So
mhm.
yeah, we'll have to wait and see. Also, you know, Rob said put a message in chat saying you're ready for the back to back. They're going
Mm,
for the 3 in a row, man. Game Lord
okay.
want it all. They want it all, man.
We have not seen a 3 in a row yet. Not out of this tournament, but Game Lord, they're definitely feeling very confident and just looking really in shape, really in form. Of course, they've been
Yeah,
looking this way all tournament long, but something about today, of all the days, they're feeling it a bit more than
definitely.
usual.
Definitely. Definitely. Look, this final game of the day, the one thing that stood out for me as well in that last game is, and it kind of complements what you were mentioning in terms of the games of being overall very good, that we see what
Hmm.
teams are trying to execute. I think that means that the mistakes that we have seen in today's games have been a little bit more glaringly obvious, because outside of that, the competition has been pretty even. I want to see a few of those glaringly obvious mistakes just cleaned up from the likes of, you know, LMV, from a couple of others. I know, again, I highlighted LMV's kind of troubles that they've had. Just those kind of glaringly mistakes, there's not really an excuse for it.
I would have to agree. We are into the very late portions of this tournament, so teams are looking better and better, which means these mistakes become a little bit more and more apparent and obvious. Like we did see a few positional mistakes from a few teams
Yeah.
sometimes, but it's not like before where we would scratch our heads, right? We
Yeah.
Yeah, like throughout the first week, there were a lot of things where it's like, okay, so obviously this region, or not this region, this tournament is not as high caliber, yada yada yada. But now it's like we're seeing a lot of good stuff happen. And why is Pachinki completely open? Where is real Tiger?
So it seemed like Real Tiger 9 are going for Milk the Power because they think that Mega Power are going to go to Pachinki and they don't want to fight. So,
Hmm.
knowing that Eastern Stars aren't in this lobby, I appreciate and respect the fact that Real Tiger 9 were like, we're not going to take the
Okay.
chance. Mega Power, obviously, either thinking the same thing or just thinking we're going to go for our normal drop spot. It is interesting, though, that no team dropped in Pachinki this time around.
Yeah, I think Real Tiger 9 felt like the plane path was a little bit too far away from Novo, which would prompt Mega Power to drop into Pachinki. So, nice little heads up adjustment, right? This time
Yeah,
around, Mega Power did just, super uh drop. And when I say super drop, I mean they were in the air gliding for quite a bit to glide into Mega Power, or not Mega Power, just to glide into Novo. So
yeah.
I like that. I like that still, but that does leave Pachinki completely wide open. And as far as all the other teams are concerned, they're probably expecting a team in Pachinki. And where is that Pachinki team going to rotate in this first circle? Because we do have a 70-30 split between the main island and military circle.
Mm. We're looking at a spicy circle finish to end the day. Wouldn't say no to that one. LMV, they're going to be looting up area of Primorsk. It's their normal drop spot. It's gonna leave it a little bit open. We see Greek army are going for a bit of a 2-2 split between the mainland and military island. I don't know how much I agree with that, but I would argue it kind of depends on how the rest of the team, the two players down in military island, look to react in terms of possibly catching out Golden Esports, causing a bit of a distraction to give more freedom to the
Mhm.
two teammates. And I would also argue that with phase one being so kind of predominantly in this area of the map that they're in, they need to be super quick with how they either group up or play in this area.
That was a little bit of a missed opportunity for Faria there. That car was driving a little bit straight for a little bit. Faria could have potentially gotten the knock, but sometimes you just miss the shots. So Golden missing a Elim there. And yeah, that 2-2 split by the team across from Military Island, and also two of them split on the main island, is quite interesting to see. I wonder if Golden was able to recognize that. Maybe they could play a little bit more aggressive, or they could potentially camp out the bridge for that rotation too.
Wait and see is Real Tiger 9. Alternative drop spot for them, but again, I really appreciate that adaptability, plus the recognition and understanding of the lobby as a whole, that Eastern Stars aren't playing today. 99% chance that area is free. They'll take a happy days. La Familia, I've noticed that in previous days and previous games, more the early Wrangle games, they dropped the Military Island, and I think as they maybe had done their VOD review and a little bit of kind of research after a couple of days, having another team of Greek army drop a Military Island and mega power kind of shifting, they were like, well, if we drop military base, that's kind of both sides of the island bridge wise, very, very hard to kind of play around. So they just instantly changed their drop spot to Quarry, and again, I think it's worked out overall favorably for them.
Well, engagement breaking out between Golden and 4 Romanian men here. 4 Romanian men pulling up a little bit haphazardly. Golden on the aggression. They already got one opening Redox spot. Gets a nice, gets a double. Redox looking so good right now with that UMP. This is just a player that's on a higher caliber level, getting a double knock onto Golden. All of a sudden, Golden is on the complete back foot of things. What are these two players going to do? They have to go aggressive if they want to come out on top. But the longer they sit around, the longer they wait, the more advantageous it is for the 4 Romanian men that's coming in.
You said it was a little bit haphazardly by 4 Romanian men. I definitely agree, but I also say it was a little bit of a presumptuous push by the two Golden Esports players. You don't expose yourself on that side of the hill when you don't have the full information of what's going on around you. And now as Golden Esports down to the final player, tries to get in the car, tries to get away, but it doesn't work out. And suddenly 4 Romanian men get themselves a squad wipe, keep themselves up as a full squad. And it goes on. 4 Romanian men, man, I know it was a mistake by Golden Esports, but to suffer a knock and still kind of have that composure to turn it around, it just shines a light on how good they can be.
I mean, let's just talk about Redox Spot. He wanted to fight for them.
I know.
Caught in a tough 1v2 while his support was still a couple of seconds away, and instead of just stalling for his support to arrive, he gets not one but 2 knocks on his own.
Yeah.
When he was being pressed at the same time from different. I mean, that is ultimately what lost Golden fight. It was Redox Spot just outplaying them. He's just better. In a situation like that, like we talk a lot about strategy, talk about a lot of team synergy, and yes, I would say 70-80% of the game is that, but sometimes some players are just simply better, and that's when you gotta just work on your mechanics, hit the training room, go to the boot camp hot drops, play those classic matches, work on your mechanics. If your mechanics were better, you should not lose a 2v1 situation. Redox, of course, he was just better in that situation.
Yep, built different as Game Lord. I have a bit of a bet with Robs. If they don't win this game, Robs has to send me a cookie. And I'm going to hold it to him. If they don't win this game, I'm going to hold it to him. As of right now, they're starting to move out of Yasnaya. Phase 1 is near the end of its days, and we're going to see Phase 2 pop up. I noticed there's a bit of a cluster towards the Potato Hill / east of Pachinki with Rexpect. I think another team hanging around that area 7 up as far as I know. So we'll have to wait and see if anything comes out of that one. While Red Moon are hanging around the ruins area. It's a good spot to be, just biding their time till Phase 2 shows up.
Yeah. I think the first circle teams have a decent idea of certain positions on the map where they want to take. Look at that spread. That cut across from west to east and then up the hill to that potato area. Teams are obviously prioritizing quite well with that spread. But let's see where the second circle shifts as LMV.
my
Ooh,
lord.
look at that tree there. That is a tree that they are not happy about. LMV down to 2 players just like that.
But that's where, honestly, the timing of that rotation was really poor for LMV in my eyes.
Yes.
You can't, especially in that area of the map. That's a good area to hold on to in this kind of phase on circle. And if you go there too late, what do you expect? A lot of teams are going to look to take it in some way, shape, or form. La Familia, they dropped in quarry, they looted up, they moved there. It would have been better off so late in the phase 1 for LMV just to wait for the second phase.
Yes,
to pop
exactly.
up, and they could have gone down to Ferry Pier, avoided it all, and stayed up with a full squad. Instead, they're now down to 2.
Yeah, if you're late on the rotation on the first circle, just chill and wait. We saw Red Moon, right? They were nowhere close to center of the zone, but they're just like, hey, this is open, we'll chill and wait, just see where the next circle pops up. So there's no need to take that location given the fact it's so far away from the edge of from the center of the zone. But YMCA setting up on this shoreline side right now. Oh, ooh, Ketu, he's got to be careful. He's got to stay alive, but at the same time, he does not want to fall down. If he falls down, he's going to be out of the fight for quite a little bit. YMCA trying to hold this down. Top's down to 1 HP, getting a very crucial knock, but 7-Up already has a surround coming in. Tops maybe can pull off a first aid hiding in the grass. He does get it off right there. 1v1 situation. On the other side of things, the other YMCA players are too far away to help. And the lines of sight will not come through. It's a 1v1. Good grenade. Similar HPs now. He confirms a thirst. Will he push this in the open?
And it's a little bit trickier as well for the other remaining YMCA players, as Torch is going to be torched to crisp with that molly. Nice play by Top Easy. I was going to say, as that final kill came through, it was a little bit more challenging for the other YMCA players to support Top Easy because there was a little bit of a third party from 4 Romanian men from a distance. That's why I think it was Ketu was taking a bit of damage on the other side of the coastline hill. But overall, well set up by YMCA. They'd been there to begin with. Devon Up went for a bit of a deep push from Potato Hill. And again, I would argue it's too late in not necessarily the game, but just too late at that point to try and go for that coastline position. They should have been there from the early parts of phase 1, and yeah, out they go.
Yeah, but it was also beautiful defense by YMCA. They had all sides of that coastal line covered. Most teams might be thinking maybe we could breach into half of this coastal line and share, but YMCA played the defense very well and adjusted pretty well too. So good job to them. We see Red Moon has rotated onto this compound here, prioritizing this location in the second circle. And going into the third circle, which we're about to see, there's still a chance it could shift onto the military island side. A very low chance at that. But there's a good amount there, and I've seen crazier shifts in the days.
Red Moon gonna get challenged by the side of the 100. Shots are being played forward by Daddy. It's important because he was out in the open that he was running and gunning with those shots, and with the help of he's actually one of the Red Moon players. That's going to be Coco knocked down. Red X going to be following suit. Still a full squad up for the members of the 100, and Breaches coming on board. Ed can really do nothing other than try and jump on down. He's going to get knocked, and one more player, Red Moon, is left up. Will the 100 be able to find him? Probably. They have a good idea. Nate's being cooked up for Sachi. Not much he can do in this case.
Yeah, Red Moon down to 1. This is another rough game for them. You see the 100 already instantly trying to circle around for the flank. Good shots, though, by Versace. Good wherewithal, knowing that the 100 likes to play these off-angle flanks. I would say that's a little bit too unnecessary. I mean, it's a 4v1 situation. Yeah. 4v1 situation. No need to go for that, wide angle flank. And also, yeah, poor timing. The circle shifted.
Versace! My God! He comes in! Nearly gets it done! But Daddy plays it through. What a great effort from Versace.
Back onto another fight now. Real Tiger 9 taking a fight with Mega Power. I want to see them play a little bit more proactive, a little more aggressive. They are starting this match with 3 players, though, so that might be too big of an ask, especially against a team like Mega Power. But V100 still in the kill feed, getting third party, but looks like they're managing to stay somewhat alive. They were not looking in a good shape, though, after we left that camera fight. AU throwing a lot of grenades. You can see Real Tiger 9 playing very defensive here. They're just simply throwing these grenades to try and keep these players back. That should be a knock if he's feeling confident.
Come on, Mango.
Yeah.
You can do better than that. Indeed, that's where the passiveness is played out. I get that you're starting as a 3-person team. It hurts, but at the end of the day, you know, an extra player doesn't really add too much to a playstyle that's already passive. It may not be in Pachinki, but the fight between these two teams does continue on. Looks like the breach is going to be laid out by Mega Powers and A's being cooked up by Lodges. It could easily be turned around because it's difficult around these kind of buildings, especially with the walls in play. That's why I found it weird that IU was throwing out so many what looked like blind nades.
It's funny because Real Tiger 9 did not drop Pachinki this game to avoid the hot drop fight. And somehow, in their very first engagement of the map, with this way the circle shifted, they're fighting each other. Big getting into fight with Lemniscate. Lemniscate had a really rough day today, and it seems like Big is not going to cut them any slack. It's a 4v1 situation already. Freezy, just, I mean, what can you do at that point? Big looking so good.
Like, it's a good place to hold on to. It's around that kind of southeast of Pachinki Hill. You got great divots you can spread out. But honestly, with all due respect, Lemniscate are just not right now in a position as a team where they can control that kind of open end. They're better off playing half compound, half out in the open, as they have a little bit more cover for the side of Real Tiger 9 as they're trying to fend off the members of Mega Power. A couple of knocks either side. IU comes in on the back line. It's just one knock secured against Real Tiger 9. It means they still have 2 players up. And then by Fella tries to move IU around, but it only forces the 2 players of Real Tiger 9 in towards each other. Mango clutches up to get the squad wipe on the Mega Power.
Real Tiger 9 with a 3v4. I love seeing that. They were playing defensive, but this time around, we were thinking they were being too passive, but they got the knocks playing defensively, and then they switched that aggression on, even down to a 3-man. So that was really good to see. So maybe we are a little prejudiced because we've seen them play passive so many times, but that time around, they're just being passive. Or not passive, they're just playing defensive. The knocks come through, and they finish that match out. LMV, this one player, Goldie, has caused so much issues for La Familia. He's taken down 3 players from La Familia, just being a thorn in the side.
He doesn't want to stop as he gets another knock on the Sheeny. I got the name right. There you go. Just before you went down. Hope you're happy, my friend. YMCA. They've held onto this coastline position for quite a while. They're able to help get a squad up on the 7 up earlier on, but another team has breached in on towards the other side. And this is where I think maybe they could have focused on one side of that coastline hill, whereas the center, as late as this, has proved to be a little bit more challenging.
I would have to agree with that. This next circle looks like all the teams are in, so we probably won't see much action at all until the circle shifts once again. Actually, just as I mean, Big, you're in the circle, you're chilling, but they're like, okay, we got some time to work with. We got some time to work with. Let's take another team fight. Great
Backline supporting shots by he was beast as far as I know, and he was able to get a knock and confirmed it up. Rex back down to 3 players, and Big just are relentless in this kind of situation. And in comes Mizara with a knock onto BK, a second on the Raspu. Brad boy, you're on your own, my friend. Gotta switch it over. Cameraman, why you saying on BK? I want to see what Brad boy is gonna do. He comes in, he's able to get a knock. I don't think that was quite confirmed. No, it wasn't. Big. They get the squad wipe.
All right, Big. I know we're into the late game, but that was actually a good timing for a 4v4, right?
Wasn't it?
It's an isolated side of the map. They realized from the angle they came in on, if there was another team next to them, they would see them, or at least, you know, have some type of visual confirmation. And they're like, okay, we're edging onto this side. There's probably only one team here in front of us. And they take the 4v4 before the next circle comes out. Now they have so much more to work with. And given that circle, hey, that's the exact 4v4 that they probably would have had to engage in anyhow. But now they don't have to waste time doing that, and they can actually spread out a little bit more and set up that defense. And just as I say that, take a look at Beast, leaving the compounds to anchor down their flank side out of zone to make sure he could control more traffic and set up a better point in the map.
Nothing Goldie could do in that situation as he goes down. Greek Army, they're going to be forced to kind of take that fight against YMCA because their entry point into the circle is going to be a little bit easier said than done. There's still 2 players up for YMCA. Looking for the last player of La Familia. Clay, going to wait as the blue zone starts to close in. 3 first aids and 7 bandages. He's fully stemmed up. If these shots do not connect, he could make it in. Uh-oh, Spaghetti-O is down to half health, down to a third of health. The wheels of his buggy gets blown up and he's forced to disengage away, pull out a first aid, but I would argue he probably should have tried to blow up the buggy before he moved away. Gets a couple of shots off, but not enough as YMCA cleans them up. That's the end of La Familia. Now they have to make their own entry point, and there's nothing Deso can do. Insania is going to get that knock. Top EC, hopefully, can allow that distraction from his teammate, the sacrifice for him to get away. He makes it to the side of a rock. Narvello of Game Lord, the solo player from Game Lord in that position, will move away, meaning for the time being Tapisi stays alive.
Nice adjustment by Tapizi there. He realizes the other side of the rock is probably the safer one, as he did drive past another team that just eliminated his teammates. Now, coming into this late game, there's a lot of huge open ground in the middle of the zone that's actually playable. There's some dips here and there. A lot of these teams, though, because they have 4 up, they're not going to default to just putting their heads down in the dips. They're going to try and fight and control their way in. We see a lot of 4-man teams left, as we have the Greek Army side. Once again, they're showing up. They're coming into the late game. They did lose 1 player, but they could have had 4. But they're coming in strong on the south side, and they're putting up the pressure onto Chasmak. Or is it actually Chasmak still going to do the same to them? They're going to try and take advantage of Greek Army's position.
Lovely spread by Chasmak, but they now need to focus on actually getting out of the vehicles and starting to take the fight. Nade's being cooked up by Greek Army to try and retaliate, but it's not going to be quick enough. Shadow in onto Stybone. Molasses is going to get knocked down. Insania and the last player up. And yeah, Chasmak, that spread has been absolutely perfect in taking control against Greek Army. They're aware of a potential third party. They're keeping 1 player across the road that is closer to the edge of the circle. Lovely initiation in terms of information by Shadow to scope and to make sure that he's aware of any potential third party from a distance. They've done the hard work. Now they just need to execute the squad out, and there you go. The Nade gets the job done.
We're down to 5 teams now. YMCA with just a solo. I think we have 3 4-man teams potentially. Oh, beautiful shots by Topez. Lasering that player of Chasmak, but they'll be able to get the revive. Zone is closing in, though. It is a slow blue zone, so that revive should come through. But Game Lord, Big, Chasmak, and 4 Romanian men. This is the showdown. These 4 teams are absolutely monsters of teams. Of course, YMCA is still in the game, but I don't think he could do much more.
What I love about 4 Romanian men is as they drove, smokes were thrown out. Right, so it's just that kind of like throw smoke, throw smoke, throw smoke. So it's that proactive movement to try and cause a little bit of a defensive movement, get into the circle, carve their way in. It's going to be easier said than done because that shack of dreams could very quickly turn into a shack of doom. The revive came out for Chasmak. I didn't think it was going to work out, but they're up as a full squad. Once again, 2 French teams in the top 5. You have a big German side on board, but they're going to be facing up against each other. Shadow went onto Robs, another onto Akachi. Novello trying to move around, but he's a little bit too late to the party, and Victor, last player up, is going to go for a revive. Surrounded, sandwiched by Big and Chazmak. The push comes in. I can't see Game Worth surviving. They've done a hell of a job. Looks like you're going to own it. Wiki Rob and Victor is knocked down. That's the end of Game Lord.
Oh, that push by Chazmak. Absolutely calculated and well done. I think you're owed a cookie, by the way, Imperium. So that's another thing to be excited for right there. YMCA, I counted them out. Oh, Topaz. Oh, that's a double. Oh, he got one. He's going to get the finish on the other.
Oh, my God.
Well, I eat my words.
1v3.
My words, Zute. You counted YMCA out, but this player just absolutely dominated the 4 Romanian men, and he gets taken out crossing the bridge. Really good job by them. We're down to a 4v4. Chasmon Gaming gets the initial opening onto Michi. Are they going to do the same push? It looks like Trazen is going in. A little bit too haphazard, though, I would say. It worked last time around, but it was a bit more calculated. This one, they kind of throw away the potential lead that they had, and Michi's actually going to get revived. Back to a 4v3 in favor of Big, and Big got the zone, but Shadowman making a very proactive play. A little bit risky, but he sets down an anchor point.
I think it's more the fact that it's trying to create a distraction so that the other side of the fence is stopping Big from creating a little bit too much control for themselves as well as being an anchor point. However, the damage is done. Chazmak are down to 2. Azer is outside of the circle. There's nothing he can do. Shadowman needs to find the perfect angles onto Big. But the more he loots, the less he's really doing to help his team come out on top. Beast has the angle. He knows exactly where Shadowman is. Don't go in on your own. No, you're not going in on your own. You're sending 3 in. Lovely pre-nade over the window by Shadowman. Swave is going to get connected on by Aster. Run over, coming on through. One player left off. Beast against Shadowman. Beast comes out on top. And Big with the chicken dinner.
Big with the chicken dinner. I've been dying to say those words for so long. And Big finally get it done. And they did it in big fashion as well. We saw that 4v4 they took at that compound. They were in zone. That compound breach is not an easy compound to go aggressive on. And Big was like, hey, this is another isolated 4v4. We got some time left on the clock. We're feeling confident. We're going to stick true to our strengths. And it just so happened that position on that map opened it up for the rest of the game into the late game. And it's finally a beautifully well done chicken dinner for the team of Big.
Yeah, can't argue with it. Isolated team fight onto Lemniskate, as you said, isolated team fight onto Rexspec. They waited. They were just like, okay, we've done the hard work. Let's slow it down a little bit. They nudged their way in towards the circle. They avoided the brunt of the kind of Game Lord Chazmak fight. There was a little bit of a hairy, scary moment from Chazmak where they were a little bit lackadaisical on their push on the Big. But at the end of the day, Big were just cool, calm, and calculated. Sealed the deal, job done, pushed in, wiped out the rest of Chazmak. What a good game to end the day. We saw Tapizi from YMCA get a 1v3 on the 4 Romanian men. Like, it's brilliant. You just don't count them out. You just don't count them out.
We were saying today, all of these teams are looking on point. You could clearly see each team had a plan in mind and they were trying to execute it. They knew what they were doing. Greek Army included today, looking like a completely different team. And even at the very beginning of the match, when we saw, Golden take that fight with 4 Romanian men where Redox bot, just 1v2'd them, that was the right play by Golden, right?
It was.
Like, they pressed the advantage. Overall, it was. It's just execution mishaps will always happen in a match. But I'm loving how all the teams, including the teams that don't usually, perform at the top, they're all playing correctly from a fundamental standpoint in terms of their decision making and knowing what they should try and do. It's just a question of how much longer will it take until they can do those things. But I mean, that's just what practice is at the end of the day.
Exactly, and that's what I love about events like this. It may be community driven, but it is also a platform for the lower teams and not as massively experienced / competitive teams to get that practice, to learn, develop, to grow, so that throughout the whole of 2022, we can see a rise throughout not only themselves as teams, but their own individual communities. Well, either way, we're going to take it to a final break of the day. Don't go away. We're going to have the results of the final game and, of course, a little bit of talking from me and Zute. Don't go away. let's go. We're back. Thank you very much for waiting. The day is over. The 4 games have come through, and that last game, Zute, it was won by Big, and finally they've shown us what they're capable of come late game.
Yeah, I think to get a chicken dinner at this point is almost like perfect, right? Like, as far as points go, Big has been getting a lot of points, just never the chicken. And with a couple of days left to play, ooh, this is a good time to start getting those late game finishes off. And honestly, even if they don't get chicken, you know, the next couple of days, if they can finish top 3, that would be huge, because Big is a team that usually goes out like around like 7, 8, but they pick up so many points in forms of elims. It's like the same amount of points that maybe a top 3 team would get with their placement points combined. But if they could do the same thing now, but finish it off in the top 3 and maybe add in a few more chickens, this is going to be looking like a completely different team.
Looking at the match rankings from that last game of the day, talked about it big with the chicken dinner. 13 eliminations, 28 in total, can't go wrong. I'm really happy to see Chazmac perform like this and have a bit of strong consistency across the day and some really good results. 9 eliminations. Again, it kind of complements what they're doing, being more aggressive, being more proactive. 21 in total, you know, because again, that kind of overshadowing from Game Lord has been there, but we're seeing a stronger Chazmac come into their own, and it puts a smile on my face.
Game Lord having a really good day. 4 Romanian men as well, being the sole representative out of Romania, stepping up huge. The only big disappointment for today would have to be on the side of the Italians, right? La Familia and Red Moon. We saw, I think it was only 2 days ago, where they dominated the day. Right? They shot up so many points. It was their day. It was their show. And then today, I don't think there was a single game where either team really had much to do. Yeah,
definitely. We couldn't have said it better myself. Look, the Italian community, it's important that they, you know, band together, that they dust themselves off and come into tomorrow with better mindset, better results on board, and I'm sure they can turn it around. It's just, you know, when we look at wanting to see teams challenging in terms of the top 3, we want to see it as close as possible, and we know what the Italian community are capable of. To give you a total of give you an idea of kind of day totals from a few of these communities, though, Germany 85 points across the day for the 2 representatives. I would argue more impressively, because they only had 1 team representative, Romania 66 points in 4 games. That's 4 Romanian men getting an average of about 18 points per game or something like that, give or take. But France, 110 points in 1 day for the 2 teams. Like, that's why I highlighted about kind of Big and LMV maybe wanting to think about kind of target dropping over the next couple of days, because that's hard to stop.
You know, in game number 1 today, Big took a fight with Game Lord head on early on, right? And they took out Game Lord without losing a single player. So as good as Game Lord is, it's not like they are unstoppable. But if you let Game Lord play their game, I mean, they have their game down to a science. So you got to stop that if you want to catch them, you know, on their weak point. But I think maybe seeing how Big finally got their chicken, I feel like Big is going to try and catch up instead by securing their own wins. Of course, they're going to still play aggressive, but I don't feel like Big should start targeting Game Lord off drop. I'm really liking how Big has turned things around. I want to see them run with this and continue this, you know, late game finish for the side of Big.
Yeah, fair enough. The second half of the overall standings, I believe, will have gotten a little bit closer as well, because Czech Republic, 7-Up didn't really have a good day overall. Spain didn't have a good day. The UK did have a bit of a better day. So with kind of 37 points dividing those three teams, between those three communities, should I say, between 6th, 7th, and 8th. I'm sure looking at tomorrow, it will be a lot closer. I want to see Greece continue to rise up to the occasion, especially Greek Army, and see what they can do tomorrow, Zute.
I agree. I think today was a very exciting day. A lot of teams really just shining through finally, right? You mentioned Greek Army, you mentioned Big. It's like both these teams looking really good. I want to see it continue on. It's been a long process, don't get me wrong. Big has been struggling with their late game all tournament long. Greek Army has been struggling just to get up onto the first half of the top 8.
Yeah.
All tournament long, and shines of brightness have just been, just starting to finally glisten through more and more.
Definitely.
But that does it for today for the PUBG Mobile Euro Community Tournament. Don't worry though, we'll be right back tomorrow, same time, same place, and I think the action is only going to get better. So make sure you tune in. We'll be back tomorrow.